Welcome, everyone. Tonight we step into a world where every breath may freeze into ice. You stand in the deep blue of a medieval winter night, your fingertips stinging instantly, your nose burning like a needle hidden in the wind. Snowflakes cling to your boots as you traverse narrow paths between low wooden huts, as you traverse narrow lanes between low timber houses. A few chimneys spew thin wisps of smoke, yet they bring scarcely any true warmth. The truth is stark. Should you dwell here, you'd scarcely survive the winter without learning all the village's silent secrets of war. Only then might you scrape by until dawn. So before settling in, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely appreciate my work. Also, tell me where you're watching from and the local time. Now extinguish the lights. The chill weighs upon your shoulders like a heavy coat as you move towards the village center. Whispers emerge from the tightly packed houses, each sound swallowed by the thick snow. As if winter demands, even noise be disciplined. A dog barks, its sharp cry piercing the air before fading into silence. You catch the scent of damp wood, frozen mud, and the faint smoky whiff from a few guarded hearths. Not the cozy glow we imagine, but the faint flickering of precious wood, each household rationing it for the entire season. Sharp and lonely, then silence. You smell damp wood, frozen mud, and the faint, acrid smoke drifting from a few guarded hearths. This is not the warm glow we imagine, but the faint flickering of precious wood that families must store for the entire season. As you walk, a historical reality surfaces. Most medieval peasant dwellings offered scant defense against the cold. Walls of timber frames filled with wattle and daub, worst standard construction across Europe. Practical, yet they trapped only minimal warmth. Touching such walls now felt like caressing a cold, drum-light weight and porous. The chill penetrated to the bone. As my eyes adjusted to the dim light, I saw the villagers moving with a weary yet steady rhythm. They carried buckets, stacked bundles of firewood, shook out damp cloths, calling to one another with a resigned determination. They know full well that the slightest lapse invites winter's immediate retribution. Fine snowflakes land on lashes, melting into icy droplets, while the heavy sky pretends another storm drawing near. A peculiar anecdote drifts into your mind, making you shiver yet smile nonetheless. Certain medieval groups believed carving wooden figures placed by doorways could ward off frost spirits creeping in at night. Whether people truly believed or merely found comfort in these wooden sentinels, several households in the village still displayed such talismans. Their carved faces worn smooth by years of touch. You reach out to touch one of them. The icy wood, strangely, brings a sense of calm. The last rays of sunlight fade as you continue on your way. People hurry to finish their tasks before night falls completely. A woman clicks a window latch shut. A boy kicks the snow from his shoes and vanishes behind a door. The surrounding hamlets curled like beasts into the winter's deep slumber. Soft light spilling through window lattices, flames flickering upon frosted panes. You watch the light tremble, as if the fire itself were growing weary. Historians still debate whether this tranquil evening with them stemmed from pure practical necessity or evolved from ancient seasonal customs into ritual is-ed patterns. Scholars differ. Some believe villagers meticulously planned their entire day with a kind of spiritual reverence after sunset. Others maintain people simply strove to utilize every minute of daylight to ward off the cold. As the village fades into stillness, you sense both perspectives. In your bones, practicality and superstition often coexisted in the Middle Ages. Walking towards the town center, your breath falls short. Silver wisps of mist. Snow crunches beneath your boots, its echoes reverberating between the buildings. Roofs sag slightly beneath thick ice, the glaze reflecting a soft, cold light in the rising moon. You catch the scent of hay drifting from barns, where livestock shift restlessly. The faint warmth becomes a precious resource tonight. Many households rely on animals kept beneath floors or against walls, merely adding a measure of tolerable warmth to the bitter night. You pause, waiting for the air to settle. This silence is profound, as if traversing time itself. In a world without the roar of engines or the flicker of electric lights, winter ceases to be merely a season. It becomes a living presence. The cold takes on a character, a thought, permeating every corner. Imagine sleeping in this environment devoid of modern comforts, coarse blankets, scarce firewood. Tonight's sole luxury is the constant movement required to maintain body heat. The chill becomes a character, a force, permeating every corner. Imagine sleeping in this world devoid of modern comforts, blankets, core, firewood, scarce. Your sole hope is to keep moving, keep gathering, keep breathing warmth into your hands, waiting for the night to release its grip. You discover each lintel lower than anticipated, each roof steeper, each space more cramped. Everything is built to seal and meet grey warmth. Yet still, cold wind whispers, sharp and thin, across your ankles. Someone closes another door. A whirlwind immediately swirls through the gap. Snow drifts along the ground, like silver insects crawling across the earth. You feel them nibbling at your skin. An elder of the village shuffles past, shoulders laden with a basket full of splinters. His beard is as pure white as fresh snow, his face etched with decades of winter. Unchanged from this moment, without a word, he acknowledges you with a quiet, almost tender nod. You return the gesture, then watch his measured steps. Winter has forged every movement. He knows how to breathe without losing warmth, how to bend without letting chill seep into his joints, how to walk with an efficiency honed by pure necessity. In the distance, the low moos of cattle trembled faintly in the crisp air. Somewhere, a wooden cart creaked, its sound drawn minus out and eerie in the frozen twilight. You drew a deep breath, tasting the metallic chill. It made your teeth ache faintly, stung unbearably deep in your nostrils. You begin to wonder, how do people relax in this world? How do they sleep when the cold waits by their bedside? How do they rest when their own breath clearly reveals the world beyond their blankets barely holds above freezing? You look around once more. The small village appears tranquil from afar, yet up close, it reveals a tension beneath its beauty. Behind every door lay families anxious about dwindling firewood, scarce provisions, and fading warmth. Each household teetered on the edge of survival. Standing there, you felt a strange belonging, breathing the same biting air, feeling your bones contract, sensing the world reduced to a struggle between cold and shelter. Now the village falls silent. The last window shutters close. Dogs circle twice before curling up in icy straw. Curtains fall. Moonlight grows brighter. You pause, standing midway across the frozen road. Winter stares at you with its harsh, unforgiving face. The long night has only just begun. Soon you will step into some dim cottage to witness how the farm survives the fireplace. Now you listen quietly to your own breath. You gradually adjust to the darkness, moving towards the low doorway by the faint glow. As you step inside, the biting chill eases. It is not warmth, yet it is enough to relax your shoulders. Your boots scrape across the hard packed earth and floor, uneven yet strangely comforting, as if treading upon the earth's skin, solid yet embracing. These floors were never made for beauty, only for survival. Countless feet have trodden them repeatedly, binding them together, yet strangely comforting, like treading upon the earth's skin, firm yet yielding. These floors were not crafted for beauty, but for survival. Countless feet have trodden them, bound branches have swept them, and they have been repeatedly compacted, until forming a surface nearly as hard as stone. Your eyes slowly adjust. The interior space is cramped, cave-like, with woven branch walls plastered thick with mud. To the touch, the texture is coarse and gritty, dry clay studded with straw fragments like minute bone splinters. Such structures are common historical examples. Millions of medieval peasants employed wattle minus daub wool for their cheap, locally sourced materials and ease of repair, though offering some insulation. They proved woefully inadequate against winter's unchecked intrusion. Outside, the wind trembles softly, yet within this dim space, its sound becomes a distant, muffled hum. The air carries the scent of damp earth. Well, under faint, lingering smoke, the haze clinging to garments rather than drifting freely. You squint towards the hearth at the center, little more than a shallow pit, where a few dull embers smolder red beneath the ashes, scarcely qualifying as a flame. Yet the family guarding it cherished it like a treasure firewood too precious to burn all night. So many households hoarded their fuel so carefully that the evening's glow shrank to mere flickering points by bedtime. Standing beside the embers, you felt only the faintest whisper of a warning. As you crouched near the hearth, a peculiar memory surfaced. It was said that sprinkling a pinch of dried herbs into the ashes before sleep would summon guardian spirits to ward off the chill drafts. Whether out of genuine belief or mere habit, you now notice a small earthenware jar of herbs resting by the hearth, clearly used recently. Rising, you survey the room. A single space. No bedrooms. No partition walls. Here the family cooked, ate, worked, and rested. The air carries the faint crackling of cooling timber beams. The low ceiling hangs close enough to touch, as if one could steady the rafters with a fingertip. Every inch of the structure was designed to trap warmth. Mud walls clad in thick thatch. Yet, despite such care, the chill lingered like an unwelcome guest. You draw in a deep breath, the air carrying the faint metallic scent of dying embers and the subtle sweetness of hay bales bound against the wall. As your soles brush the earthen floor once more, you discover a lingering warmth beneath your heels. The reason soon becomes clear: your family had laid flat stone slabs beneath the earth near the hearth. These slabs slowly absorbed heat during the day and released it gently at night. Historians still debate whether this was a deliberate design or the natural warming effect of hearth fires. Some believe farmers intentionally laid them for thermal storage, while others suggest it was an unintended result of centuries of use. Whatever the truth, you now felt that faint warmth, barely perceptible, yet infinitely better than the frozen earth. You ventured deeper into the house. The narrow windows were tightly shut. Even the slightest crack would let in the cruel, cold wind. Cloth strips are stuffed into the edges of the thick wooden window frames. You press your palm lightly against them and feel the cold pulse from outside, as if the night itself were tapping the wood with its fingertips. Villagers ward off the chill with woolen patches, stuffing dried moss and straw oats into the gaps. Even in late autumn, sealing gaps with mud before the first frost. Kneeling, you watch a trail of frost creep along the wall. The chill will always find its way in, yet the true art lies in minimizing its intrusion. Low ceilings trap warm air from rising and escaping. The sleeping platform, raised in the room's center, occupies the warmest air layer. Family members spread thick rye straw on the floor, adding a barrier between themselves and the cold earth. This is not luxury but architectural wisdom forged by necessity. You sit on a low wooden stool, smoothed by years of use. Your fingertips trace shallow indentations in the wood. Marks or letters carved by someone long past. They feel ancient and soft, strangely familiar. You sense the silent resilience of generation. Each winter, the same story repeats: family members layering blankets, patching walls, rationing coal, adjusting routines. Year after year, this house stands here, doing its utmost to shelter people. Your breath condenses into mist before your eyes. Even indoors, the temperature is likely only slightly above freezing, yet the difference between here and the outside world remains stark. You pull your cloak tighter around you, your shoulders slumping with both exhaustion and relief. Shelter is not synonymous with warmth. Shelter means the cold will take your life more slowly. If you are fortunate, at least you can sleep peacefully. Inside, a woman stirs at clear broth, the wooden spoon tapping a steady rhythm against the pot's rim. She speaks not a word, yet her weary gaze, resilient in its softness, meets yours. Children huddle at her feet, sharing a woolen blanket. You feel drawn to that simple comfort, the warmth of bodies beside you, the security of shared breaths. Near the roof hang bundles of dried plants, strange as inverted bouquets, onions, herbs, weeds stuffed into quilts. In winter, everything has its you, nothing wasted. Every object within the room seems to whisper the same message. Endure tonight, then tomorrow and the day after, until spring finally remembers you. You move towards the heart of the room once more, your fingertips lightly tracing the rough walls. This texture anchors you to the earth. You touch the chill, the grit, and the lives that forged these materials. The house may be cold, yet it holds something else: perseverance, silent resistance, courage palpable to the touch. The embers crackle once more, like a sigh. Children stir beneath their quilts. The shutters creak in the wind, and you realize this small world is the true beginning of winter's survival story. You curl deeper into the dim room, letting the coal fire's soft glow guide your step. The air carries a weight of stillness, making every movement slow and supple. You watch your family prepare their sleeping places, and instantly grasp a truth needing no words: the source of warmth lies here, in the dim room. Let the coal embers' gentle light lead your way. The air bears the weight of stillness, rendering every movement sluggish and gentle. You witness your family preparing their beds, instantly grasping a truth that needs no words: the warmth here is not a personal endeavor, but a collective undertaking. As you move towards the heart of the room, this realization wraps around you like a woolen cloak. To survive a medieval winter night, one must cling to others. The cold never compromises. You see your family huddled in their bedding, straw mattresses laid upon raised beds, blankets piled in irregular layers. Mother beckons the children closer, and they nestle together with practiced ease. Only now do you grasp the vital importance of shared warmth: bodies pressed close together. Close embrace warms a cramped space far more than a feeble firelight. As you sit apart, an ancient truth surfaces: many rural communities practiced communal sleeping, for houses lost heat almost as quickly as they gained it. This was no romantic custom, but a pragmatic response to a harsh climate. You imagine lying among kin, half minus awake to the sound of breathing, feeling the slight shift of bodies beneath the bedding. This was not privacy, but survival. You shift position, your shoulder brushing the edge of a coarse blanket. The fabric prickles, faintly scented with lanolin and smoke. The house dog circles twice, curling up beside a child's feet. When the night wind bites like ice, even the warmth of small creatures feels precious. You watch the child's eyes half minus closed in contented warmth. A strange folk tale flickering in your memory. Whispers from elders in distant villages. Certain families believed placing a cloth minus wrapped warm stone at the bed's center would summon a gentle spirit to watch over them through the night. Whether people truly believed this tale or simply cherished companionship in the dark, you now understood how precious this shared warmth was. Placing a cloth minus wrapped warm stone at the bed's center would invite a gentle spirit to watch over them all night. Whether people truly believe this tale or simply cherish companionship in the dark, you still see several stones warming in the hearth embers before the last sparks die. Someone will tack them beneath the quilt. You gaze once more at the fine cracks in the wall, where a thin frost glistens, its chill seeping through. You instinctively wrap your cloak tighter, mimicking the villagers' unspoken ritual. They need no words to remind each other to bundle up. The unspoken understanding is already there. Winter never offers kindness. As you curl up at the edge of your sleeping place, you observe how your father positions himself against the wall. His body will block the fiercest drafts, building a barrier for the others. The resilient occupy the outer positions, while the more vulnerable nestled inward. This was a silent pact forged through generations. Observing the settled figures, a thought flitted through your mind. Scholars debate whether these sleeping arrangements were deliberate. Is it a family following a conscious pattern, or did habit naturally evolve until no one questioned its origin. Ancient texts offer only faint traces, and historians interpret them differently. You quietly lean towards the view that instinct and habit coexist. Humans often create order without meaning to. The night wind brushes against the outer wall. A subtle shiver runs across your skin. You hear the wind's soft murmur against the window lattice. The villagers, utterly unaware, have long been wrapped in the night's embrace. Children are the first to drift into slumber, their breaths slow and even. Mothers hum gentle lullabies as they tuck them in. The singing blends with the creaking of rafters and the rustling of creatures beneath the floorboards. You watch your father stuff rice straw into the crevices beside the bed with practiced, swift motions. Though the straw might prickle the skin, it unexpectedly traps warmth. Its dry texture and rustling sound add a soft, almost comforting note to the room. You run your fingers through the loose bundles of grass, feeling the stiff stalks shift and settle like tiny wood shaving. Your gaze lifted to the charred beams Christmas crossing the ceiling, encrusted with years of soot. Certain surfaces gleamed as if polished, reflecting the dim, oily light seeping from countless campfires. In the dimness, the beams seemed to tilt inward slightly, as if guarding the sleeping family beneath. With every whisper of wind, they creak softly, a lullaby woven into the very bones of the house. You begin to feel the weight of the room. It is not weariness, but a profound stillness that comes when enveloped in warmth. Views it beside the embers, your breath gradually steadying. The faint glow of the embers pulsed softly, like the house's own heartbeat. You leaned forward slightly, resting your shoulder against the pillow, still warm from the cooking that had taken place earlier. The wood's warmth carried an almost tender quality. Closing your eyes for a moment, you imagine countless cold nights spent here by countless families. Those nights filled with fear and resilience. Those shared small joys. The whispered laughter muffled by blankets. And the steadfast certainty that at dawn, in this little cottage, winter seemed both insignificant and vast. Insignificant because humanity faced it together. Vast because it braced the walls with endless patience. You saw the snow piling higher outside the window, the cold wind sweeping across the empty fields, the night sky thick with silent stars. Yet just a few steps away, in this icy world, several figures guarded a flicker of warmth. You sense movement beside your father shifting back into place, the dog's soft snoring, the embers flickering faintly. As the night deepens, the realization dawns you cannot withstand the winter alone. You lean into another, breathing the same air, sharing the same bedding, becoming a warm knot that flickers like a faint light, just enough to ward off a little of the night. You survey your surroundings once more, your gaze lingering on each detail, the stone-lined basket, the straw stuffed walls, the layered blankets, the soft breathing. Everything fits together like a silent jigsaw puzzle. With each breath, you to become part of it. This is how farmers endure the coldest nights. Breaths intertwined infuse warmth into the spaces between bodies, allowing shared heat to transform the frozen world into a place where weary limbs can still sink into dreams. And as you sit still here, feeling your muscles relax and your breath grow steady, your body answers the night's call. You shift your body, your gaze drifting towards the sleeping platform. This family has nearly finished preparing their resting place. Curiosity draws you closer, eager to touch the texture of their nocturnal world. From afar, the bedding appears simple, but when you lean down and brush it with your fingertips, you realize these fibers hold a complete story within them. The first layer is a thick straw mattress laid upon a wooden frame. When you press your palm into it, the surface emits a dry whisper. The straw ends and springs back, prickly yet offering firm support. Remarkably, it lifts the body so effectively from the cold earth. Such mattresses are commonplace across many regions, where soft bedding remains prohibitively expensive. This detail reappears in ancient family records, revealing how widespread straw beds were in ordinary households. Yet straw alone would chafe bare skin, hence the coarse linen sheet draped over it, that we've worn uneven by years of use. The fabric faintly carried the scent of smoke and lingering herbs, likely used to repel insects. Lifting a corner revealed straw dust clinging to the underside. Though falling short of modern cleanliness standards, it bore the marks of lived minus in existence. Countless nights of restless tossing and whispered dreams collectively shaping this simplicity. Gazing upon the bedding, a small detail came to mind. Most households replaced their straw mattresses only a few times each year. By midwinter, the mattresses often carried the scent of the season and fragments of the fields. The concept of crisp, clean bedding was centuries away here. Utility trumped comfort, and villagers willingly traded a touch of prickle for warmth. You straighten up, eyeing the stacked blankets. Each layer differs thick, coarse blankets to block the wind. Patchwork, quilt stitched from scraps of old smocks. The faded mosaic patterns, surely sewn by candlelight. Beneath, soft layers stuffed with whatever materials were at hand. A faint scent of dried hay wafts from the filling. Some households tuck in leaves or herbs like lavender to repel vermin. Whether this truly works or is mere psychological comfort is hard to say. You suspect the latter, yet admire the ingenuity. As your fingers trace the quilt's patchwork edge, you recall that in certain medieval regions, where means permitted, feather or wool minus stuffed bedcovers were used. Such luxuries seldom reached peasant households. However, scattered records mention families spending years gathering feathers to sew a single mattress pad. You imagine the profound pride one must feel upon finally gathering enough material, even for a small cushion. You glance back at the family. They curl quietly upon the mattress, bodies sinking into its uneven surface, yet shifting effortlessly, for this is the resting place they know best. You sit beside them for a moment, carefully shifting your weight onto the straw layer. The material creaks softly beneath you. Your hips first meet a protrusion, then a hollow, finally settling into a perfectly balanced spot. Even the roughest bedding, once you cease comparing it, can still bear your weight. For a moment, carefully press your weight into the straw layer. The straw mattress beneath you gives a faint creak and shifts. Your hips first meet the bumped, then the hollows, until they settle into the perfect spot. When you cease comparing this imperfect bedding to the softness of your familiar world, it still bears your weight. You trace the coarse weave of the woolen blanket once more, its texture almost tugging at your skin, yet every fiber is woven with warmth, even slightly damp. The wool retains heat, making it indispensable on cold nights. People treasure these blankets almost as clothing. You understand why. Dragging a corner lightly across your hand, warmth instantly gathers in your palm. Thoughts drifted towards a peculiar detail from some ancient legend. Villagers believed placing a spindle beneath one's pillow could dispel nightmares, whether superstition or comforting custom. You glimpse that miniature spindle lying beside the mattress. Its presence makes you smile even in the harshest circumstances. People reserve space for small magic. You shift again, letting your palm slide along the wooden bed frame. Some edges are smooth, others rough, not aesthetic carving, but necessity. A few nails barely held the structure together, while a taut rope at one corner strained against the frame, emitting a faint creak. Beds were seldom crafted with precision. Most work cobbled together from scrap wood, patched repeatedly until their final day, discarded only when utterly broken. A question rose scholars often debated in ancient texts whether these were standard furnishings found in every farmhouse, or varied greatly depending on local resources. Researchers' opinions diverged. Some believed straw mattresses were nearly universal, while others argued that communities facing straw scarcity might resort to reined ear moss or even dried seaweed. The historical records were fragmented and incomplete, leaving ample room for imagination. You find solace in this uncertainty. History often breathes within the gaps of fact. You recline slightly, propping yourself up on your elbows, imagining the nightly routine of slumber here. You picture the faint rustle of the straw mattress beneath you as you toss and turn, the warmth slowly gathering between layers of wool. Waking in the morning to find your hair dusted with straw or imprinted with the uneven contours of the mattress. With each breath, the texture of this existence grows sharper. Beside you, a child burrows deeper beneath the covers, emitting a contented sigh. This sound softens the entire room, where embers flicker faintly. A gentle current of warmth brushes your cheek, and you realize that the world's comfort does not stem from softness or luxury, but from familiarity, from the weight of bedding shared with loved ones, from knowing you can face another cold night because the bedding beneath you has already borne countless long nights. You press your palm into the straw once more, feeling its firmness. Inhale the earthy scent. Listen to the faint rustle as you turn. Gradually, the bed's roughness fades, replaced by a simple tranquility, a reminder that when the outside world freezes solid, even the humblest materials can support a weary body. Use it upright once more, letting the faint warmth seep into your shoulders, your gaze drifting towards the room's edge. However meticulously the villagers prepare their homes, the chill still seeps in from all sides. It glides across the floor like a patient beast, squeezing through cracks you never imagined existed. You shift your legs slightly, when a wisp of icy breath touches your ankles. A subtle shiver comes up your spine. You inhale slowly, scrutinizing the walls more closely. As the night wind shudders the house, the wooden beams emit faint groans. Mud panels are embedded between the joists, their layers of repairs piled upon one another, long since indistinguishable from the original surface. These overlapping marks resemble crisscrossed scars, each one marking a battle fought against the winter's grip. You touch the seam, even through the parched earth. A faint chill seeps through as you examine the wall. A familiar detail of rural life surfaces in your mind. The gaps between wooden planks or around door frames in many country dwellings, where villagers would attempt to fill the voids with whatever materials were at hand. Scraps of wool, moss pressed into ropes, clay stuffed into cracks, even fragments of cloth. This battle against the cold is never minus ending, for the chill always causes surfaces to crack easily. Tonight you can see several fresh patches where residents attempted to block the draft just hours before sunset. A gust rattled the shutters, causing one to knock softly against its frame. The sound was sharp, like knuckles tapping wood. You turned your head and saw a sliver of moonlight cutting through a nearly invisible crack. It was as fine as a hair, yet cold enough to stir another faint chill towards the floorboards. Crouching by the window, you felt the draft brush your fingertips. An odd memory drifted into your mind. An ancient winter whispered in farmhouses. Long past people would sometimes wedge chewed bread dough into cracks as an emergency seal. It hardened quickly and could be replaced daily. Not elegant, but it possessed a messy ingenuity. Strange as it sounds, should the chill persist, you'd likely do the same, stuffing chewed bread dough into the crack as a makeshift seal. It sets fast, replaced daily, not elegant, yet it possesses its own messy ingenuity. Strange as it sounds, should the chill seep in just as the child falls asleep, you'd likely do the same. You rise once more to gaze upwards. The ceiling beams bear the dark marks of years smoked by time. Yet where the coldest is mottled, frost blossoms appear at the edges, like delicate white gauze seeping in from outside. Press your palm close to the eaves, and you can feel the cold pressing down like a slow, silent tide. You imagine curling up each night beneath the rafters, listening to the sound of the timber contracting and expanding with the temperature changes. A question forms in your mind, one that researchers still debate to this day. The question, did the villagers deliberately make the doorways narrow and the ceilings low beneath the bed be? Listening to the creaking of timber, contracting and expanding with temperature shifts. A question surfaces in your mind, one still debated by scholars. Did villagers deliberately design narrow doorways and low eaves to ward off the cold? Or were they merely the product of scarce materials and rudimentary craftsmanship? The existing architecture suggests both possibilities, leaving room for contemplation. Standing within the house, you realize such compact design might indeed trap warmth, even if the builders never intended it. Your gaze drifts to the door. Its mortise and panels etched with countless scratches left by stiff fingers opening and closing it through countless winters. Strips of cloth are wedged into the gap between the threshold and floor, attempting to block the draft. As your toes brush against that opening, the air turns suddenly icy, as if the cold night itself were rushing through the crack. Whenever the wind howls outside, the cloth trembles faintly. You step back a few paces, enveloped by the warm air currents from the hearth. The contrast so stark that within mere feet, tolerable chill and bone-piercing cold are divided. No wonder, come evening, the family always huddles tightly around the fire. Each gust feels like an invisible hand pressing against the skin. That gap like the very breath of night, a warm embrace. The temperature difference becomes instantly apparent. A mere few feet separating tolerable coolness from the biting wind. No wonder families huddle close to the hearth at dusk, each draft like an invisible hand pressing against the skin, reminding us that this house cannot be perfectly sealed no matter how thoroughly we prepare. A child in slumber shifted beneath the quilts, drawing the woolen blanket tighter around their shoulders. You glimpsed a wisp of scattered straw stirred by the breeze at your feet. That draft swirled along the floorboards, like a curious ghost haunting the room. It was not violent, merely a gentle glide. Each pass so cold it made you blink, adjust your posture. Instinctively, you drew your legs close to your body and moved towards the corner, where the room met the outer wall. The chill here was more biting. You crouched down, breathing softly, watching your breath drift sideways, as if pushed by an invisible current. You imagine how the villagers honed their ability to discern these subtle movements, learning to predict the flow of drafts, identifying the coldest corners of the house, and knowing how to arrange bedding so children curled up in the warmest spots. Your thoughts drift to the nearby repair tools, a small rag-lined basket, a wooden mallet, bundles of harvested moss, all prepared for emergency patches. The drafts are not merely a nuisance but harbor hidden dangers, especially during the long, bitter nights when temperatures plummeted. People patched and patched again, never expecting the house to withstand the elements on its own. Outside, the wind suddenly howled, moaning through the cracks like a lonely instrument. You felt the vibrations travel along the beams, reaching the very heart of the room. The family barely stirred. They knew these sounds well, having heard fiercer ones before. This stillness is not harmless cold. It is fear draining the energy they desperately need to conserve. You slowly circle the room, hands lightly tracing the walls, window frames, and doorposts. Every point of contact bears the marks of battling the seasons. You imagined generations of hands smearing clay into cracks, stuffing cloth into joints, adjusting window bolts, fighting the stubborn cold with whatever scraps were at hand. As you retreat towards the house's center, a sudden realization dawns. Medieval nights were defined not merely by biting winds or the faint glow of embers, but by humanity's eternal dialogue with the chill that tested their craft. Each sealed gap, each stuffed rag, each added patch represented another silent victory against a world intent on stealing war. You sit once more beside the straw mat, the chill lingering along the floorboards, curious yet contained. The rafters above groan softly as they settle. The wind murmurs in the corners of the room, seeking an opening. You sink deeper into the moment, understanding how winter leans its weight against the walls. You sit still for a moment, listening to the faint creaking of the house, until another gentle movement tears beneath your feet, a subtle shifting, warm breaths, the rustle of dry straw. You hesitate before recognizing the source. As the truth gradually comes into focus, the warmth of this house comes not only from humans, but from the creatures living beneath your feet. You approach the hidden door at the room's far end, little more than two planks joined by wooden tenon. As you lift the board slightly, the warm, earthy scent greets you. Amidst the sudden shift in temperature, you inhale the mingled aromas of hay, animal scent, and damp wood, a strange, comforting blend after the long, cold, dry spell. Many rural households built their living quarters above barns, allowing the animals' warmth to rise naturally. This design was far from uncommon, but rather a practical solution chosen by those who understood how precious every ounce of body heat was. The warmth radiating from cattle, goats, and even pigs proved far more reliable than the feeble glow of a hearth fire. Imagine the family above silently thanking the creatures below, a gratitude never voiced. You lean into the opening, watching moonlight slip through cracks in the outer wall, tracing the outlines of hay bales that glow faintly like golden thread. You hear cattle shift, their heavy bodies sinking deeper into the straw. The goats continued to chew, utterly oblivious to the late hour. Their movements transmitted subtle vibrations through the floorboards, as if the entire house had come alive. As you watched, traces of an ancient belief surfaced in your mind. Villagers once said sleeping above livestock brought good fortune, for they guarded the home through the winter nights. Whether people truly believed this or simply found comfort in the solid weight beneath them, the notion persisted in tales passed down through generations. You smiled faintly, understanding how such faith grew naturally from the comfort of shared warmth. You gently closed the trapdoor and walked back towards the room's center. The floor felt particularly warm now, especially in the thinnest central section. Kneeling, you pressed your palms flat against the wood. Warmth rose gently yet firmly upwards. The insulation proved unexpectedly superb, a living furnace shaped by instinct rather than engineering. A question often posed by scholars surfaces: did medieval households deliberately design such layered dwellings from the outset? Or did the practice gradually emerge as people became aware of temperature differentials? Existing records offer inconsistent accounts and detailed planned layouts. Others suggest makeshift structures. The truth likely lies in the interplay of necessity, climate, and local custom. Leaning back, you listen to the rhythmic breathing of animals mingling with the faint sounds of sleeping family. Two worlds interdependent. Animals relying on humans for sustenance and shelter. Humans depending on animals for warmth and survival. Within this shared winter space, the boundary between barn and dwelling dissolves almost entirely. You picture the daily routine at dawn. Your father descends first, inspecting each animal, spreading fresh hay, clearing away waste before it accumulates. As the animals stir, warmth rises steadily, heating the dwelling like a hidden hearth beneath the earth. By dusk, the space has absorbed enough heat to permeate the timber, maintaining a livable temperature in the upper rooms even as storms rage outside. This cycle predates memory itself. Curiosity prompts you to pressure you against the floorboards. You hear the slow chewing of rumination, the scraping of hooves shifting hay, and the unmistakable sigh of a creature sinking into slumber. These sounds become the lullaby beneath which your family sleeps. You imagine a child waking in the still darkness, fear surging in their chest, only to be reassured by the familiar humming below, knowing they are not alone. The house breathes with them. You rise once more and survey the room. A gentle warmth rises, transforming the atmosphere entirely. The chill still clings to the corners and window frame, but at the heart of the room lies softness, a buffer against the frozen world outside. The floorboards creak softly beneath your weight, responding like a living shell bridging two worlds. Your fingertips trace the floorboard cracks, even through these minute fissures. A richer warmth seep, rising like a wisp of mist. You imagine how precious this warmth must be when the night wind scrapes the walls with icy persistence. You picture the family huddled beneath the roof, nestled among their mattresses, breathing slowly as animal warmth rises from below like an invisible blanket. You take another step, and the air shifts silently. though this warmth falls short of modern standards of comfort. It forms a protective barrier. It keeps the harshest winter at bay. Without these animals sheltering underground, the house would likely freeze solid each night. The bond between this family and their livestock transcends mere sustenance and labor. You pause, marveling at the system's ingenuity. No machinery, no fuel, merely hand breath, yet perfected through centuries of observation and survival. You imagine the first person who realized how much warmth the living body could bring to a cold night, and how this simple insight silently spread from village to village. As night deepens, the sounds of the animals grow fainter and fainter. Their warmth rises, seeping into the floorboards and walls. Upstairs, the family sleeps peacefully, sheltered beneath these creatures. Come dawn, the milking will begin. You feel the pulse of the entire house, as if it were a living organism woven from humans and animals. You draw in one last deep breath, letting the warmth beneath your feet envelop you. The cold still waits patiently outside, but within this small house, the combined body heat of humans and animals forms a sturdy sanctuary, sufficient to protect all through the long winter night. You pull your cloak tighter around you, your gaze turning to the family's clothing. Blankets offered warmth, yet animal heat surpassed them. Soon, however, you realize that what people wore at night mattered as much as anything else. In this place where the fire died early and the cold wind seeped in like a blade, clothing became armor against the chill. Even in slumber, you kneel beside the pile of garments beside the bed. The fabric appears thick and almost stiff, yet your fingertips sink into the dense woolen weave upon touch. Its surface carries a slight sheen from lanolin and the natural wax found in wool imbuing the cloth with a faint earthy scent and moisture, minus wicking properties. No wonder family members seldom shed these layered wraps during the depths of winter. You imagine lying down at night still clad in the garments worn during the day's labor. You pick up a shirt and hold it up to the dim light. The fibers vary in thickness, some areas thicker than others. This is the mark of hand-spun yarn, unpretentious and imperfectly smooth. Yet this very unevenance ingeniously traps warmth. Across Europe, villages once relied on wool as their primary winter fabric. Ancient records reveal how people sewed coarse, unrefined woolen cloth into long robes, using them as protective layers against the bitter cold. The fibers varied in thickness, some coarser and denser than others. This is the very mark of hand-spun yarn, never striving for flawless smoothness. Yet this very unevenance perfectly traps warmth. Across Europe, villages relied on wool as their primary winter textile, with ancient inventory records frequently mentioning thick tunics, cloaks, and linings made from it. What your hand touches now is the tangible reality of this history. Beside the robe lie a pair of long stockings, heavily patched, the patches vary in color, their stitching revealing a confidence that prioritized utility over neatness. Running your fingers along one seam, you feel the slight ridge where the fabric overlaps. You imagine someone sitting by the hearth in earlier times, mending this garment for the 10th time, determined to see it through another winter. Your thoughts drift to ancient folk customs within the rural community. Some believed that tying an unwashed woolen cloth across the chest at night could ward off the icy spirits that roamed the winter air, preventing them from invading the heart. Whether this belief was ever truly held is impossible to verify, but you do notice several small woolen cloths curled beside the bedding, sized precisely to slip beneath the shirt's hem. Your gaze shifts to the corner of the outer robe left by your father. The garment is thick and substantial, far longer than comfort in bed would require. Yet many villagers still slept trapped within it, allowing body heat to pool within its folds. Running your fingers along the lapel, you felt it burst entangled within the fibers. This cloak had traversed fields, forests, and snowdrifts, gathering fragments of the landscape along the way. As you examined the garment closely, a question took shape, one frequently debated by scholars: did households adopt identical layers of clothing, Or did sartorial styles vary considerably by region, climate, and available materials? Some scholars argue that severe cold compelled similar clothing patterns, while others cite archaeological finds revealing astonishing regional diversity. The evidence fails to coalesce into a single, clear picture, leaving room for contemplation. Standing among these aged garments, you gently lift a child's smock, its texture softer than the others. The brushed wool lining feels almost velvety, a stark contrast to the coarse outer layer. The softness in the household was always reserved for the children. You imagine your mother draping the smock over a sleeping child, hoping its warmth would last through the night. A nearby basket holds felted woolen mittens, those thick, sturdy felt almost completely blocking the cold wind when held in your palm. Felted goods were especially prized in the depths of winter, their heat-minus retaining properties far surpassing woven fabrics. You picture the entire family sleeping in these mittens, especially on the coldest nights, when frost crystallizes on the window panes. You turn back to your sleeping family. Even now, you can see each person beneath their blankets, fully clothed, shirts tucked into long stockings, cuffs pulled tight, cloaks hanging loosely, and resting in the cold was sheer folly. Temperatures could plummet, and minutes of exposed skin would bring hours of excruciating pain. You lean down to touch the fabric mere inches away. The wool, saturated over years by countless nights of body heat and sweat, had grown soft. It carried a faint scent, the very breath of survival, woven into every thread. Mother shifted slightly in her sleep. Through the shifting folds of her cloak, you glimpsed the coarse leather belt fastened at her waist. Such belts remain tied even at night, both to secure layers of clothing and to hold small pouches or tools too precious to risk losing. You imagine the profound reassurance of sleeping with every necessity securely fastened to your person. A wisp of breeze brushes your cheek, reminding you how fragile the barrier between warmth and winter's bite truly is. Clothing becomes a rampart built upon the skin, without layer upon layer. The chill would swallow you whole. You reach into the pile and pluck out another thick pair of coarse woolen socks. The stitches appear hastily done, the threads uneven, yet the fabric feels remarkably sturdy. You picture someone slipping these socks on before burrowing into a straw bed, warmth slowly seeping into their toes while frost blossoms silently on the distant wall. You lean back for a moment, cupping the socks in your hands. The fabric warms slightly at your touch, responding almost instantly. Now you understand why the villagers trust these garments so deeply. Wool seems alive in the depths of winter, flowing, breathing, locking in warmth. You survey the room once more, letting its stillness envelop you. Those blankets, the stacked garments, cloaks, gloves, patched stockings, smocks softened by years of wear, each a tool for survival, each utterly essential. As the chill seeped in through the outer walls, you grasped a pure, profound truth here. Clothing was not about fashion. Clothing was sanctuary. You rested your palm lightly on the edge of the straw mat, your gaze drifting over the warmth gathered in the huddled forms. The room itself begins its nocturnal metamorphosis. As the embers dim and the last rays of sunlight fade, the world within the cottage fills with another kind of sound. Not clamorous, not startling, but rather a gentle symphony that, as you immerse yourself in it, feels strangely intimate. First, the wooden framework encircling the space catches your eye. Each beam and pillar emitted a slow, rhythmic creaking, the natural contraction of timber as the chill deepened. It sounded like breaths, almost a whisper, with faint moans flowing in irregular undulations. Tilting your head slightly to listen more intently, you realized each plank possessed its own unique tone, responding to the night in its own way. In medieval European dwellings, this nocturnal chorus of timber on timber was a familiar sound, often noted in ancient text, describing country houses constructed from green timber joined with mortise and tenon. They continued to shift even after completion. Your gaze drifted towards the shuttered window, where a faint hiss seeped through hidden cracks, barely louder than a sigh. When the wind outside shifted abruptly, that sound trembled and gradually faded. You imagine yourself lying in bed, half-minded asleep, hearing this delicate song weave through the room like a silver thread, not unpleasant, merely present, a reminder that winter always seeks to enter the home, invited or not. From somewhere above the rafters came the fluttering sound of small creatures, perhaps a nesting bird turning in its sleep, or a mouse exploring the thatched roof. Country houses often share long nights with tiny neighbors. People have long regarded these faint rustling as part of the natural landscape. Folk tales passed down even claim that a mouse crossing the beams foretells a fortunate day is approaching, though no one knows the origin of this belief. When another faint scratch echoes overhead, so soft it's almost imperceptible. A faint smile touches your lip. The air trembles. The soft breathing of family behind you adds a unique rhythm to the night. A child's faint snore through a blocked nose. A father's cold breath, the deep, drawn-out exhale only possible after long labor in the bitter cold. Their breaths intertwine with the gentle rustle of bedding and the shifting of bodies beneath straw mattresses. Closing one's eyes, one could almost imagine the entire dwelling breathing with them, rising and falling in the haze. When a new sound reached your ears, you instantly became alert, the faint clinking of metal pots by the hearth, contracting as the temperature dropped, releasing a delicate sound like raindrops striking stone. You moved to the hearth and sit cross-legged, gazing at the soft red glow beneath the embers, the faint clinking of metal pots cooling by the fire. As the temperature plummets, the pots contract, releasing a delicate tapping like raindrops on stone. You draw nearer to the hearth, sitting cross-legged, and gaze at the gentle red light beneath the ashes. Even the embers murmur, the lingering warmth of the wood crackling. These sounds echo through the centuries. As described in ancient winter diaries, the night filled with soft pops and the fine rustle of settling ashes. When the wind suddenly surges, the shutters clatter sharply, and you turn your head to listen once more. That sound filled the room like a swift wind, then dissolved into a muffled murmur. Scholars often debate how the night wind shaped medieval sleep patterns, particularly during stormy nights. Some argue that people grew accustomed to the constant sound, sleeping soundly. Others suggest the noise kept households in a state of half-wakefulness, ever-aware of shifting weather. As you listen now, you might imagine both possibilities. Then came a stillness so profound you could hear your own heartbeat. Suddenly, the floor trembles. Soft thuds rise from the animals below, cattle curled deep in straw, goats shifting their positions. Their movements transmit subtle vibrations through the planks, like the pulse of a great beast slumbering beneath the house. This sound is neither loud nor startling, but steady and grounded, holding a peculiar comfort. You imagine the villagers, tossing and turning in the night, hearing these familiar thumps and smiling faintly, knowing one still rose from beneath the earth. Your attention returns to the thatched roof, its bundles of straw forming a soft layer of insulation that buries the sounds deep within, deepening the space's tranquility. Occasionally, a sliver of ice slides down the exterior, making a faint crackling sound upon landing. You scarcely notice it until the second or third time. Each minute sound merges into the broader silence of the night. You breathe slowly, synchronizing your rhythm with the stillness around you. Then another faint sound curls its way indoors, ice soft. Stick of dripping water. Droplets from earlier melted snow run down the wooden beams, slip through the tiny holes in the thatch, and tap against the clay pot placed below. The sound is as soft as fingertips tapping fabric. Many households place earthenware pots beneath potential leaks, knowing winter often tests even the finest repairs. You touch the rim of the pot, feeling a wisp of nascent, chilling dampness. When you stand still, the sounds weave into a gentle tapestry, the wooden beams stretching and settling, the wind threading through cracks, the straw shifting beneath sleepers, the metallic clink of earthenware, the distant whimper of animals beneath the earth. This is the soundtrack of a medieval night, a world without engines or humming appliances, where every sound originates from living beings, natural materials, or the slow settling of a house weathered by countless winters. You draw another deep breath, letting these sounds wash over you. Not oppressive clamor, but layered stillness. The room seems alive, each sound a reminder. Life never ceases, even when the outside world has frozen into silence. You imagine yourself lying here, sleep drawing you deeper, the soft chorus guiding your thoughts through the darkness. In this dim cottage, the night is never truly silent. It is gentle and patient, filled with the quiet hum of existence. As you listen, your eyelids grow heavy, lulled by the simple symphony woven from beams, wind, straw, breath, and warm bodies, each watching over the other through the long winter night. You shift your body, glancing once more at the dying embers, then at the tightly shut window panes. A thought cuts through your mind like a blade. This quiet cottage is fortunate to retain even these few embers. In the most impoverished regions, many homes have no fire to burn all night. When you imagine the world beyond these walls, darkness pressing upon families who cannot afford even a few shavings of wood, lacking the strength to ward off the chill, this truth sinks into your very bones. You move towards the hearth, crouching beside the embers. The ashes glow faintly, offering scarcely any warmth. You draw your hand closer to the lingering warmth. Though calling it warmth is a luxury, it feels more like the faint memory of warmth than actual heat. This household economizes fuel carefully, allowing the fire to burn brightly only during cooking and evening labor. When night falls, the flames die out, for there is simply no spare wood to burn. You recall another cottage by the roadside, whose inhabitants failed to gather sufficient firewood before the first snow. Perhaps the forest belonged to a lord, strictly forbidden to trespass, or perhaps the local ruler forbade peasants from cutting trees in specific woodlands, reserving the resources for his own manor. Feudal records across the lands detail how firewood was rationed, taxed, or tightly regulated. You imagine being in such a predicament, venturing into the woods with an axe, risking fines, or even harsher penalties, as your fingers sift through the ashes. The details come into sharp relief. When firewood was scarce, people devised creative ways to stay warm. Some households used dried peat or bundles of wood gathered under cover of night. Others burned scrub as thin as twigs, producing more smoke than heat. Many simply let their fires die out, conserving the meagre fuel for the next day's cooking. Imagine waking to a chill that pierces the chest like a blade, knowing the only way to warm the house again is to draw embers from the meagre remnants beneath the ashes. By the hearth, it's a lidded earthenware pot, its lid shaped like a low dome. Lifting it reveals faint traces of charcoal lash within. This was a survival tool used in certain regions to preserve embers. A few glowing coals, sheltered within the ashes, could linger for hours. Come dawn, the family would gently blow upon the embers, adding dry wigs until the faint flame reignited. Without this method, starting a new fire from scratch could consume precious time and resources. Your thoughts drift to the far corner of the room, where shadows grow dense and deep. You imagine nights devoid even of this faint warmth, biting cold that gnaws at fingertips, clings to lungs, each breath seeming to carry shards of ice. Try to picture curling up on a straw mattress, absolute darkness seeping chill into every joint. You would still hear the same creaking wood, the same animal cries, the same winter wind sighing. But when not a single coal warms the air, those sounds become sharper, more intrusive, as if the night itself were testing your endurance. A thought surfaces. Scholars debating rural settlement life often argue how many households deliberately extinguish their fires, not through superstition or custom, but sheer necessity. Historians suggest that in the harshest regions, during the deepest winter, households often went several nights without kindling a fire. Others contend that however faint the embers, people would always preserve a little, for the psychological comfort the faint light brought was as vital as the warmth itself. Standing within this room, you find yourself leaning towards the second view. Even the faintest glimmer seemed to alter the atmosphere in an irreplaceable way. You pace towards the door and touch its rough surface. Without the fire's glue, the wooden door should feel as cold as stone, yet you can still sense the chill seeping through the timber. A draft slips through the door's crack once more, brushing your ankles. You imagine how the cold would engulf the entire room if the embers behind you suddenly dimmed into absolute darkness. The floor would solidify, the air grow heavy and still, even breathing becoming uncomfortable. Too cold to draw in comfortably. You retreat towards the hearth and take a deep breath. The faint warmth lingers on your face for a moment before vanishing. You could almost picture your family huddling together when the fire died. They would wrap themselves in every garment, bury their hands in straw, press their feet against stones warmed in the evening. Hold children close and whisper soothing words, their warm breath turning to mist in the cold air. You sit upon the floor, your fingertips once more brushing the fine particles of ash adhering to your skin, cool as powder. Deep within the ashes, a lump of coal lies like a slumbering eye, faintly rusted. You blow gently, and the coal instantly glows bright, only to return to its dull orange hue. You feel a strange connection to all the helping hands throughout history. Simple actions often determine the boundary between warmth and bitter cold. A faint rustling catches your attention. The children are shifting beneath the quilts, adjusting their positions under the blankets. For now, they are still warm, but you know this warmth is fleeting. As the flames cease to breathe life into the air, the chill deepens by the hour within the room. The floor tiles gradually release their stored warmth. The walls expel the residual heat they've absorbed. The animals below sink into deep slumber, their movements slowing, the pulsing warmth they transmit upwards growing ever more sparse. You rise slowly, moving to the room's center to observe the cold's progression. It spreads like a tide beginning at the edges, sliding along the walls, coiling around window frames, slipping through door cracks. Then it penetrates the floorboards, silently and resolutely expanding until it reaches the bed, brushing the bedding and your face with icy fingertips. Households without fire could sense this encroachment before dawn. Yet, even in the coldest dwellings, people found ways to survive, placing heated stones at their feet, letting dogs curl up beside them as they slept. They wrap heads and hands in whatever cloth they can find. Some families even breathe into their quilts to create pockets of warm air, trapping heat beneath the fabric. You draw closer to the hearth once more, letting the faint glow of embers light your fingertips. A truth settled gently within for those dwelling in the most meagre huts. Survival meant learning to live unafraid in the dark. They kept company with shadows, curled beneath quilts stained with earth and smoke, relying on their own breath and the bodies around them offering what little warmth the night was stingy to give. You sit still for a long while, listening to the faint crackling of coal beneath the ashes. That faint light flickers like a heartbeat in the darkness, and you feel the weight of survival without fire. When winter presses hardest upon the world, you allow the room's stillness to envelop you for a moment. The coal fires glow, softening your vision until everything seems to float in a gentle mist. Then your attention turns to something subtle yet undeniably significant. The small rituals medieval households performed before retiring to shape the room's atmosphere. Not formal ceremonies, not grand gestures, but silent habits honed by experience. You approach the hearth once more, observing how this family meticulously arranges every corner of their little world before sinking into slumber. Before retiring, they always perform small rituals to set the room's atmosphere. Not formal ceremonies, not grand gestures, but quiet habits honed by experience. You approach the hearth once more, observing how this family meticulously tended every corner of their little world before drifting off to sleep. You catch sight of the cooling pot by the wall, Earlier, the mother had ladled the last few spoonfuls of warm broth for the children. The dregs now lay covered over the cloth basket, awaiting tomorrow's breakfast. Evening meals were oft unsimple and frugal, yet the lingering warmth in their stomachs was enough to ease the encroaching chill beyond the door. Such plain fare carried its own comfort, setting a steady tone for the long winter nights. Leaning against the doorframe was a brew made of stiff twigs. Just before lying down, someone had swept the floor a few times, practicing pushing the debris into a small pile by the wall. Many households believed sleeping in a cluttered room invited vermin and undillness. Whether this held any truth, people diligently followed the custom. Even the simplest act of tidying brings a sense of order to this frightening and unpredictable world. On the hearth bench, bundles of dried herbs are tied with hemp string. As you lean in, their scent quietly unfurls, a blend of plants gathered in warmer seasons, soft and faintly sweet. Some households placed herbs in bedrooms to soothe the spirit or mask the damp, woolen, smoky air. You picture mothers brushing these herbs over blankets before covering their children, hoping the fragrance might lull them to sleep. Gazing at the bundles, you realize that for many communities, using herbs was not a luxury, but a necessity for their medicinal or protective property. Rural healers' records detail potions concocted on winter nights to ease breathing, calm nerves, or dispel the aches left by long days' labor. You inhale the bundle once more. Perhaps it holds mint or sage, renowned for their soothing properties. You approach the wooden basin against the wall, where a dark, still watery haze glows faintly beneath the light. Before sleep, family members, oft ungently, rubbed their hands and faces, not merely for cleanliness, but to wash away the dust and smoke accumulated throughout the day. A sharp sting shot through your fingertips as they dipped into the cold water. You imagined villagers swiftly completing this simple cleansing, their breath forming mist in the chill before they dried their hands on coarse cloth. Your gaze shifted to another object, a short, wooden stick with a charred tip. Picking it up, you realized it was a tool for stirring embers. Many households would stir their hearth fires before sleep, arranging the remaining coals to prolong the burn. You gently prodded the stick into the ashes, feeling the faint crackling sound as it slid through the surface. This small gesture was enough to sustain the flames, allowing them to blaze anew at daybreak. A flicker of memory surfaced, recalling a peculiar custom. Some families believed that if the last embers died before dawn, misfortune would follow. People took special care when covering the fire, sometimes whispering a wish or a thank you before sprinkling ash over it. Whether this held any mystical significance or was mere prudence no longer mattered. It transformed necessity into a tender moment connected to the home. You rose and walked back towards the bedding. Earlier, your mother had gently smoothed the quilts, ensuring they lay flat and wrinkle-free. She had placed the children in the center of the sleeping area, closest to the stove. You imagined her doing this night after night, hands instinctively smoothing those minute details, guided solely by a lifetime of winter routine. Gazing at the quiet room, a question surfaces, one often debated by scholars examining family letters. Do these nightly rituals carry symbolic meaning, or are they purely practical? Some argue these habits from an informal ritual structure, offering psychological comfort as darkness descends. Others maintain they are merely effective responses to a harsh environment. Standing here now, you sense both explanations might hold true. Rituals often spring from necessity. You cast one last glance towards the door, where Father tucks a strip of cloth beneath the threshold before lying down. He presses it down with his foot, ensuring no icy draft can seep through. This simple act was like a silent declaration the house was prepared. The family could rest. He pressed the cloth strip down firmly with his foot, ensuring the icy draft could not seep in. This simple act was like a silent declaration. The house was prepared. The family could rest. You pace back to the hearth and sit cross-legged. The coal glows faintly, pulsing like a slow heartbeat. Sleepiness gradually fills the room. Children breathe softly. Someone stirs beneath the quilt. Livestock turn over and settle back to sleep. Each sound blends with a ritual of moments passed. As you sit in the dim light, you begin to grasp the deeper meaning of these trivialities. When the winter night stretches impossibly long, stability transforms into warmth. Warmth and repetition becomes refuge. The familiar, slow breathing envelops you like an invisible blanket of herbal fragrance. The faint glow of embers and the quiet memories of the night. These simple, daily rituals transform the harsh world into a place where one can sleep soundly. The dwelling breathes in undoubt. The room settles into stillness. The night deepens, and you sink deeper into the tranquil rhythm of existence. You shift your focus back to the center of the room, your gaze settling on the small, sleeping figure curled deep within the bedding. The children cling tightly together, at first glance appearing as a single curled silhouette, a tiny nest woven of limb, wool, and quiet breaths. As you approach, you notice how they instinctively draw closer to one another as the night deepens. In a world that treasures warmth, children become experts at drawing every last thread of heat. You crouch beside the mat, observing the arrangement of their bodies, one lying on their side, knees pressed against their chest, another with their forehead resting on the shoulder of the child before them, the smallest child curling their feet beneath their companion, buried deep within the layered blankets, only the tips of their hair peeking out. You exhale softly as the warmth radiating from this tiny nest spreads like a soft glow, subtle yet unmistakable. As you observe this scene, a well-documented fragment of rural life surfaces in your mind. Households often place children at the center of the sleeping platform. As the small bodies dissipate, heat more rapidly. Surrounding them thus provided insulation, unmatched by straw or blankets. This simple choice, though unassuming, recurs frequently in ancient text describing communal sleeping platforms across diverse regions. Drawing closer, you notice one child clutching a small scrap of woolen cloth, once part of a larger piece. It has now worn down to a soft tangle of threads. Such objects often serve as comforters, held tightly during long winter nights when the darkness feels overwhelming. You imagine the small hand clutching it as storms howled outside, the children clinging to this familiar, warm presence. Beside the child's head lay a small cloth pouch. When you lifted it gently, a faint scent of dried flowers wafted out. Perhaps months ago, someone had placed fragments of summer herbs within it. Villagers often believed that placing fragrant herbs beside sleeping children could soothe nightmares and dispel the ghosts of the cold season. It was said these spirits roamed between houses in the deepest hours of the night. Whether or not such specters were really feared, the pouch itself offered a small measure of reassurance, a physical warmth accompanied by a psychological comfort. One of the children shifted slightly, murmuring faintly in a half-minded sleep. As they settled back, their toes brushed the plush surface of another blanket. You notice the blanket beside the child is slightly thicker, visibly patched with superior fabric. Parents always reserve the softest cloth for their youngest sleepers, even if they themselves must endure coarse layers upon layers. In this season demanding resilience, it is a small act of tenderness. You sit upon the bedside, your palm resting lightly upon the corner of the quilt. Its surface radiates warmth as if alive, as if the children, through sheer willpower, could dispel the chill with their body heat. Each time a child drew a deep breath or shifted restlessly in search of comfort, you could almost feel the straw beneath the mattresses stir. Your thoughts drifted to the question researchers often pondered when examining old household accounts with space so limited. How did families decide sleeping arrangements? Some advocate strict allocation by age and vulnerability, while others suggest a fluid arrangement, shifting nightly according to illness, comfort needs, or the sequence of household tasks completed. Existing historical records offer no concrete details, leaving the gaps to imagination. Gazing upon this scene now, you realize choice requires no deliberation. It is shaped by instinct and affection, not constrained by rules. Your gaze falls upon the mother's figure, positioned but a few inches from her children. Her hand rests slightly upon the edge of the bedding, poised to reach them at any moment. Even in deep slumber, her body remains subtly angled towards them, as if attuned to every slight turn or stir. You imagine that should a child cry out in the darkness, she would awaken instantly. In that era, without heaters or bright lamps, safeguarding the children's warmth and safety was an endless task, both instinct and vigilance. A faint sound came from beneath the bedding. A child murmured softly in sleep, then curled tightly beside a sibling. You imagined how many nights throughout history echoed with such subtle sounds: the gentle moans of dreams, the rustle of straw, the creak of floorboards beneath shifting knees, a soft murmur, followed by a tighter huddle beside a sibling. You imagine how many nights throughout history have echoed with such faint sounds: the faint moans of dreams, the rustle of straw, the creak of floorboards beneath shifting knees. These sounds belong to a cold world, yet also to a tender one. You shift your position and survey the room, where the warmth beside the children contrasts sharply with the lingering chill along the walls. You could almost see the coldness as a silent shadow lurking in the corners, waiting to creep in, but the children's nest keeps it out, forming its own protective circle. You reach out to touch the nearest sleeping child. Pausing at the edge of the blanket, warmth radiates upwards, reminding you of small burrowing creatures huddling together to endure the long winter. A medieval painting flashes through your mind, depicting a family sleeping tightly embraced. You realize these images are not mere symbols, they are simply reflections of reality. As minute details emerge, one child's hair slightly curled from the damp warmth within the covers, another short socks peeking from beneath the blanket's edge, their hem damp with sweat, a silent reminder that even at rest, the human body battles the cold. These details render the entire scene more intimate and vivid, as if one could hear the rhythmic rise and fall of their chests. A rural childhood anecdote surfaces in certain villages. It was believed that if a child slept beside a round stone warmed by the hearth, its heat would guard the soul from drifting too far and dream. Whether this was metaphor or fact is now lost to history, though scattered records do mention it. You glance towards the bedding and spot such a stone tucked inside a cloth sack. Here, someone clearly follows the old ways, blending practicality with tender superstition. You listen again to the room's sounds, the children's steady breathing mingling with the occasional groan of wood, the murmurs of animals below forming a steady pulsing nocturnal rhythm enveloping all who sleep here. You imagine the children growing up amidst such familiar background noise, where silence itself would feel alien. Your gaze sweeps over their figures wrapped in blankets once more, noticing their faces so close together, their toes lightly intertwine the blankets. Their sleep is not detached and orderly, but tangled, woven, and utterly grounded. In the deepest winter, intimacy is solace. Intimacy is survival. You settle back onto your heels, letting the warmth soak in for a moment longer. The children are utterly unaware of how fragile the night is. They simply sleep, trusting the nest that surrounds them, trusting their parents, trusting the warmth within the quilts will last until the first light of dawn touches the roof. As you watch their slow, even breathing, a simple yet profound truth begins to dawn when the world is at its coldest. The smallest sleepers lean not on bonfires or thick walls, but upon each other. In this small room, the warmth they share has already quietly conquered the darkness beyond the window. You gently move away from the sleeping figures of the children, towards the other end of the house. There, the bedding is piled with different patterns, the bed wider and flatter, as if holding anticipation. You notice this space is more spacious than the family requires tonight. The excess straw and fabric extending outward tell their own silent story, the patterns woven daily by countless medieval households. You lean close to the edge of the sleeping mat, lightly touching its border, The straw rumbles softly beneath your fingertips, the sound both familiar and strangely symbolic. Every village has nights like this when revelers appear suddenly, seeking shelter before the chill consumes them in the wilderness. Country inns worst case, for most, prohibitively expensive. Thus, an urgent need. Households opened their doors to strangers. Warmth was not a hoarded commodity, but a treasure to be shared, however clumsily. Imagine a knock upon the door hours after sunset. Weary travelers step inside, cheeks flushed crimson by the biting wind, cloaks stiff with frost. They offer a trembling greeting, hoping not to be turned away. Many records note that hospitality here was often duty rather than choice. The villagers knew well that any of them might, on some ill-fated winter journey, find themselves in desperate need of shelter. To share a room was to share survival. You run your hand over the blankets laid here, the fabric coarse and scratchy. These are not the soft layers treasured for family use. These are communal bedding, worn thin yet ever present. Surviving records note these supplementary bedding items were patched together from scraps each household could spare, specifically for travelers, laborers, or passing merchants. A faint scent lingers among the fabric smoke, leather, sweat. You inhale again, catching a trace of dried horsehair, likely left by a saddlebag brushing against the bedding on some winter night. Every scrap of cloth you bore the memory of strangers who had slept within these walls, listening to the same creaking beams and the murmurs of creatures beneath the earth. As you lifted the edge of a blanket, a folk tale surfaced. Certain rural communities believed sharing a bed with a traveler brought good fortune, for new stories always carried their own warmth. Whether one truly believes this or not, the notion eases the awkwardness of sleeping elbow to elbow with strangers. On nights when personal space melts away out of necessity, this faith becomes solace. You shift your body, imagining how guests might be embraced in such close quarters. Family members might adjust their positions, pressing closer to the wall to carve out space, or rearrange sleeping spots to let visitors slip into the warmest corner of the straw mat. This is not luxury, but practical consideration. As you examine the bedding, a question arises one scholars debate when studying medieval rural travel customs. Did visitors always share the family bed? Or did some households reserve loft spaces or corner beds? Accounts vary across regions. Some describe open communal sleeping. Others mention simple partitions made of cloth curtains or wooden screens. The truth likely hinged on resources, climate, and village traditions. Surveying this humble cottage, you realize privacy was a luxury none could claim. Here, guests shared everything. The warmth, the chill, the night sounds, the soft breathing of children, even the faint scent of herbs hanging from the rafters. You picture the scene of sleeping embraced by strangers' elbows lightly brushing blankets, intertwined breaths mingling in the chill. Yet within these walls, such intimacy feels strangely reassuring. Your fingertips trace the bed frame, its wood unsurface bearing faint indentations, as if from frequent, gentle touches when climbing in. Undoubt, you picture the late nitrogen slipping quietly beneath the covers, trying not to rouse the household, though someone always stirs, half asleep, murmuring softly. Perhaps the visitor thanks them in the dark. Perhaps the host whispers a gentle welcome. These fleeting exchanges are the very essence of our winter hospitality. Your hand brushes the straw like pillow, emitting a faint crackling sound upon contact. Country pillows are often made from whatever materials are at hand. Family members sometimes offer the flattest pillows to guests, reserving the slightly softer ones for the children. You appreciate the practicality of this arrangement. The guest gains shelter and rest, while the family ensures the children stay warm and comfortable. Simple, and efficient. You picture travelers lying here, weary from frozen roads, their boots still damp with mud or melted snow. Perhaps they brought news from neighboring villages, or traded tales for a warm corner when coins were scarce, stories oft unserved as currency. Voices drifting through the darkness come to mind, describing distant markets or farm miners off stones, while family members listen, half miners asleep. You lean back in your chair and survey the room. Even now, the extra bedding lies like an invitation, silently promising that anyone chilled by the cold may find a little warmth here. Medieval hospitality was no mere pretense, but a collective defense against the seasons that heed neither borders nor titles. The lamb beneath your feet shifted, its tremor traveling through the floorboards to the mat beside you. The sleeping traveler might have sensed this tremor, a faint, tremulous smile touching their lips relieved to lie upon warmth, rather than the frozen roadside. You slowly trace the weave of the blanket once more, its fabric bearing the traces of countless cold nights, each mark woven layer upon layer into the cloth. Patches of contrasting fabric, irregular stitches, corners pulled askew by hurried hands. These fragments narrated tales of countless cold nights, when warmth must be shared. It flows naturally, when you lay still. A thread of silent truth settled lightly upon your shoulders, when the bitter cold showed no mercy. The sleeping arrangement stretched and contracted as freely as breath. My family falls asleep expecting restful slumber, only to awaken sharing a blanket with strangers. Yet such intimacy rarely breeds resentment. Instead, it kindles small sparks of gratitude or humor, bridging lives that might otherwise remain separate. You touch the straw mattress once more. Its firm, slightly uneven texture offers warmth in its simplicity. You imagine lying here with a stranger through the long, cold night. Realising warmth can arise from unexpected companionship. In a world where winter pounds fiercely upon the walls, people learn comfort sometimes arrive through shared space, shared breath, shared existence. In this cottage where every corner harbors a tale, even strangers become the rhythm of the night, woven into fragile warmth, driving the darkness to where it truly belongs. You rise from the straw mattress, your gaze drifting once more to the closed window panes. A silvery glow seeps from the edges, heralding dawn's quiet approach. Yet in a medieval winter, daybreak brings neither warmth nor color, only a stillness as cold as a second skin draped over all things. You move slowly towards the door, the chill like a blade caressing your cheek, gentle yet sharp. You paused. The room felt distinctly colder, though your family lay but a few paces away. But a few paces. The coal beneath the ashes had dimmed to a faint red dot, no brighter than the eyes of a hibernating animal. Crouching beside it, you feel scarcely a flicker of warmth. This is the hour when many households awaken daily, breath condensing to mist on fingertips, stiff skin prickling as if the cold itself were gently drawing them from slumber. You draw nearer, observing frost crystal lacing along the hearth's edge. Delicate sparks of ice shimmer faintly, weaving intricate patterns in the hour when darkness holds the world most firmly in its grasp. You breathe softly upon it, watching it melt into a single droplet. This sensation recalls entries from old winter diaries. Many villagers awoke to frost upon their bedding, especially the wall miners facing side. Their nocturnal breaths gently condense, clinging like silver dust to the surface. You rise slowly, moving towards the window. As your palm nears the window latch, a piercing chill strikes like an icy fist, as if something awaits you on the other side. You withdraw your hand and exhale softly. The air indoors remains bitterly cold, yet this small space by the window feels like a gateway to an entirely different world. Standing before the window, a strange family tale surfaces in your mind. Some families believe that frost creeping into the house at dawn is a sign that the winter giant is roaming outside. It is said their footprints press the chill deeper into the earth. Whether people truly held this belief or merely enjoyed telling it to children, the image comes naturally as you gaze at the shimmering frost crystals. You glance back at your sleeping family, their breaths gently lifting the bedding in rhythmic, wave minus like swells. As the room's temperature drops, the huddled forms draw icy still, Mother shifts gently, pulling the quilt higher to ward off the encroaching chill. One could almost hear the woolen straw rustling and shifting beneath their weight. A question often debated by scholars surfaces quietly: how do these households avoid falling ill so frequently during the bitterly cold mornings? Scholars hold differing views. Some argue that daily exposure to the cold dew forges resilience, while others contend that illness was far more prevalent than historical records suggest, obscured only by sparse documentation. The truth likely lies somewhere between. Standing as the chill sinks through your sleeves, you grasp the sheer resilience required merely to face the morning light. As you approach the doorway, a wisp of cold air slips through the crack, gliding silently across the floor like a stream. Crouching down to observe, you see several strands of straw quivering, a movement almost alive, reminding you that winter never truly sleeps. Running your fingertips along the floor, you feel how the chill first settles in the low places before climbing up to the bedding. You straighten and inhale deeply. The air tastes crisp, almost metallic, the flavor of winter mornings before any cooking smoke lights the world. You imagine waking in this chill, struggling from the bedding, joints squeaking like the rafters above. You picture stepping into the night's cold that filled the room. Only now it stings more sharply, for you are no longer wrapped in shared warmth. Your gaze drifts to the ceiling beams, where the junction of wooden roof glistens with a thin frost, like scattered starlight in the dim light. You reach out to touch a beam. The instant cold numbs your fingertips. Pulling your hand back, you clasp it lightly, your exhaled breath barely warming your knuckles. Beneath your feet, the animals begin to stir restlessly. A soft murmur rises from the lower levels, followed by the rustle of hooves and claws against dry straw. The warmth rising from below gradually fades, as though the livestock remained half-minus asleep, not yet stirring for their morning chores. Their slow movements against the warm planks added a quiet rhythm to the space, heralding the approaching dawn before the first light fully revealed itself. You walk back towards the sleeping quarters, watching the undulating waves of the bedding with each breath. Leaning down, you lift a corner of the cloth. The space beneath the bed remained warmer than the rest of the room, a small sanctuary sheltering from the cold. Yet the chill still nibbled at the edges, creeping inch by inch inward as time passed. You imagine this family about to awaken. Their first exhalations will condense into tiny wisps of mist. Their initial words will fall into the icy air. They will shake the frost from their bedding, rub their hands together, then instinctively head towards the stove, attempting to rouse the slumbering coal. Everything begins with that coal. Without it, the new day would be far harder. You return to the hearth, gently stir the embers. Your fingertips touch the faint glow. Brightening, you blow softly until the color deepens. The coal trembles once, then falls silent again. You imagine yourself. Each winter morning, this simple act has become a ritual of hope. Should that tiny source of heat stir once more, the whole family would awaken with it. You sit upon the low straw, letting the chill drape over your limbs like a thin cloak. Dawn drifts into the room with a pale, ghostly softness. It brings no warmth, yet carries the promise of action, the beginning of chores, the spark of daily tasks, the aid that dispels the stillness of night. The medieval dawn lingers longer than expected, its chill seeping into every corner, touching every breath. It announces its presence before other senses awaken. Yet within this small wooden hut, listening to the sounds of waking animals and the slow turning of sleepers, you quietly grasp a profound truth. The morning chill is no enemy. It is merely the next chapter in the daily cycle, until spring finally remembers. On the journey home, you sit quietly, watching the pale halo of light spread slowly across the floor. Yet it awakens entirely different memories within you. Medieval nights. The long winter nights seemed even more interminable. Family members did not sleep through the night as most do today. Sleep came in alternating waves. This thought settled naturally into your mind. like the chill seeping into the corners of the room. Such segmented rest was not unfamiliar to them. It was simply the rhythm of the seasons. You rose slowly and walked back towards the center of the room. Your family still lay deep in slumber, yet you sensed vaguely that had you lived in that era, you might well have been awake once already. The stillness of the deep night oft undissipated after several hours, replaced by a hazy state of half-minded wakefulness, people turning in their beds, murmuring, praying, stoking the fire, tending to livestock, or simply tossing and turning in the darkness, thoughts racing. You picture yourself lying upon the straw mattress, half-minded eyes open, listening to the darkness, hearing that low hum containing the strange pulse of winter. You take another slow step, the floorboards creaking beneath your feet. The sound is particularly jarring now, starkly contrasting with the soft breathing around you. You imagine the villagers stirring at the sound, only briefly aware before sinking back into that gentle liminal space between sleep and wakefulness. Later writings often describe the first sleep ending several hours after dusk, the second sleep descending after a brief period of quiet activity. The origins of this rhythm extend far beyond common understanding. As the first glimmers of dawn pierce the twilight, you move towards the window. Here, the chill grows more biting. The tautness of your skin a reminder the hours between slumbers must be navigated with care, ever vigilant to shifts in temperature. Placing your palm upon the shutter, you still feel the lingering touch of night, yet something in the air hints at change. Not warmth, but possibility. You draw in slowly, imagining the patterns that have shaped your entire life. Childhood anecdotes drift through your thoughts. Parents once told their children waking in the dead of night was a gift from guardian spirits, who gently nudged family members to tend the hearth or ensure all slept warmly. Whether you truly believed these tales or not, they always cloaked the moment of awakening in a gentle halo. Waking was the norm. Waking was inevitable. You sit upon the bedside, gazing once more at the children. Their small forms rise and fall to a steady rhythm. Had they followed the old pattern, they would now be murmuring softly in the deep of night, curling tighter, slipping into a second sleep. Utterly unaware, you imagine faint whispers to parents, requests for water or warmth, before sinking back into dreams outlined by swaying shadows. Your gaze shifts to the hearth. Rising, you pace closer, crouching beside the embers. A single coal still glows faintly, pulsing with its last strength. You tease it gently with the tip of your poker, imagining how centuries ago someone might have stirred from their first sleep to do the same. Checking the coal was a nightly habit, a quiet moment when the room breathed slowly, deeply, like a living thing. You blew softly. The coal flashed brightly for an instant before dimming again. You imagined family members performing this ritual regularly, the dark night filled with the soft sound of breathing. These moments, these minute fragments that shaped the winter night, were as vital as the cold itself. The interval between sleeps might span mere minutes, or stretch to an hour or more. People prayed, told tales, tended their tools, or simply lay silent while the outside world hung suspended in icy stillness. A question arises one scholars still debate as they pore over ancient letters and diaries: was this segmented sleep a universal pattern, or did it vary with climate and routine? Some evidence suggests it was common in regions with long winter nights, while others argue it depended on work rhythms and heating conditions. Surviving records fail to paint a complete picture. Yet within this dim cottage, such rhythms feel entirely natural. You rise, stretching your arms gently, letting the chill stir your muscles, imagining yourself lying on a straw bed, eyes opening in the middle of the night, enveloped by thick, gentle darkness. Perhaps you would listen to the wind outside the window, pondering how many hours remained until dawn. Perhaps you would reach out to pull the edge of the blanket closer, or softly rouse the person beside you. Or perhaps you would simply gaze at the faint red glow of the coal, letting your thoughts drift away like smoke. Now you move slowly through the room, observing objects shaped by the night's rhythm, the earthenware jug by the hearth awaiting water, the small knife by the wall prepared for morning tasks, the herbs suspended beneath the beam used to calm breathing, unsteady dreams. These exist in the quiet gaps between sleep, belonging to a world of brief awakenings and sinking back into rest. You kneel once more beside the child, gently touching the bedding. Warmth seeps through the fabric, a silent reminder, though sleep may be fragmented, the heart of the room remains anchored by shared warmth. They are not yet aware of the rhythms their bodies follow, yet winter itself has long etched its patterns into their very being, long before words could convey them. The darkness stretches so long that thoughts naturally cycle to their own rhythm. You tilt your head back to listen to the faint rustling of animals below. As dawn nears, their movements grow more frequent. You imagine households using the first light to check their livestock, ensuring no creature is tangled in rope or straw. In the darkness, the sound of shifting hooves becomes a kind of signal. It tells the villagers that night still holds several hours, while also declaring that the world remains steady. Another soft sound reaches your ears. A sleeper's quiet exhalation, a slight shift upon the mat. This movement stirs your thoughts, reminding you that the second sleep is often deeper, heavier, more secure. When the trifles or quiet musings between the two sleeps conclude, people return to rest with a newly found tranquility. You walk towards the far end of the house, gazing up at the rafters. As the sky outside grows lighter, the frost patterns creeping along the beams glow faintly. You imagine yourself lying here, sinking into the second sleep, utterly unaware of the bitter cold above your head, wrapped only in shared blankets and steady breathing. You retreat towards the hearth and sit down once more. The dying glow of the coal embers dims again, a gentle reminder that the morning ritual of kindling the fire draws near. Closing your eyes for a moment, you picture yourself sinking into that deeper, secondary sleep. The world gradually shrinks to the sound of breathing, the soft touch of straw beneath you, and the lingering scent of herbs within the room. Segmented rest is no rarity here. It is natural, shaped by long cold nights, biting temperatures, and the rhythm of life within these simple walls. You let this realization sink into your heart, like a slow exhalation. The first sleep is a pause and wake of signals, the second a continuation of settling. Thus winter whispers its lullaby. As you sit in the deepening night, you realize this rhythm is not ruled by the cold, but by people themselves. Their habits, their breath, their shared warmth shape the darkness as surely as frost carves the earth outside. Within this little cottage, the night is not an endless stretch, but two gentle waves of respite, carrying the family from dusk to dawn, through darkness and chill, a rhythm ancient beyond memory. You linger by the hearth for a moment longer, watching the embers glow like a lazy heartbeat, then sense the night's next chapter unfolding. If you were born into this world, the space between first and second sleep is no idle passing of time, but a quiet window where thoughts churn, trifles surface, and minor duties gently tug at your attention. You rise slowly, feeling the floor's chill seep into your souls, only then understanding why winter nights' pauses become miniature worlds within the long night. You approach the hearth to stir the embers once more. The coals respond with faint flickers, barely illuminating the edge of your palm. Families often use this interval to ensure the fire burns until dawn. The life of the embers is vital. That dim light lessens the chill of daybreak and saves the effort expended in kindling a new fire from scratch. Many old country diaries record that people would always stoke the fire at least once during this transitional period, adjusting the embers and coals with practiced, small movements. You imagine yourself kneeling on the cold floor, half minus open eyes exhaling mist, breath turning to vapor as it nears the embers. This moment holds a peculiar intimacy. The house is utterly silent, shadows flowing like heavy curtains. The soft glow of coal the only color in this grey minus black cocoon space. You push a slender tinder stick into the embers, not to kindle a new fire, but to prolong the old one for a moment. As you rose, a faint creak sounded overhead, the rafters contracting slightly with the cooling air. The sound seemed a gentle reminder the night had not yet fulfilled its purpose. Turning to your sleeping family, you noticed your mother shifting slightly within her nest of blankets. Half minus awake, she reaches out to touch the child beside her, feeling their warmth as if guided by an instinct deeper than thought. Watching them sleep, a strange memory surfaces that in some places, people believe a child's spirit drifts slightly between the first and second sleep. To keep these wandering spirits close, parents would softly chant short poems or prayers when their children stirred. Whether one truly believed these tales or not, they offered a gentle solace against the harsh reality of winter night. You pictured parents murmuring in the darkness, their words mingling with the rustle of straw beneath their palms. You move quietly towards the wall where tools line neatly arranged wooden spindles, bone-handled needles, small curved knives placed side by side. Unfinished tasks of the day pause here, awaiting the next moment of leisure. Many households use the interval between sleep to complete chores requiring quiet concentration. Mending garments, sharpening tools, preparing herbs needed for the morning. These tasks required no bright lamps, only patience and familiarity with the materials, a familiarity honed over countless nights like tonight. You picked up the spindle, its surface smooth from years of handling. You imagine someone, half minus asleep, transforming loose wool into thread, muscle memory guiding their movements. The long, dark hours of winter nights extend far beyond the demands of simple labor, so households find practical ways to utilize this time. Your thoughts drift to a question often debated in historical discourse. Was this twilight hour primarily utilitarian, or did it serve contemplation, prayer, or quiet conversation? Existing records suggest both. Some households regarded it as a quiet hour, whispering hopes, fears, or everyday concerns. Others used it to tend to livestock or stir pots simmering over dying fires. The evidence paints a diverse picture, shaped by region, wealth, and custom. You set down your spindle and move towards the dark door leading to the livestock. You lift the door panel a few inches and peer into the dim space below. A warm current gently brushes your face, like a greeting. A cow shifts silently in its sleep. A goat emits a faint snort. Their movements remind you. Animals follow nocturnal rhythms distinct yet intertwined with our own. Some households use this waking hour to check on their livestock, especially during harsh seasons when illness or injury might strike without warning. You lower the trapdoor and rise slowly, the house now more still, as if holding its breath. Moving towards the window, your palm touches the shutters. Calm seeps through the wood, steady and gentle now. Not the sharp bite of before. Perhaps the edge of dawn is near, or perhaps your thoughts are settling into the world's rhythm. You tilt your ears slightly, listening as the sounds within deepen I'll murmurs and sleep. Indistinct whispers drifting from beneath the bedding. Your father's soft snores. A faint rustle comes from the haystack by the wall. A mouse scurrying through, foraging for scattered crumbs. These sounds do not disturb the stillness, but rather shape it. You turn towards the hearth, where a bundle of dried herbs rests upon a wooden tray. Picking it up, you inhale its gentle, soothing scent, the very fragrance that lingers upon clothes and bedding. In some households, herbs were used at midnight to ease chest constriction. If the embers still glowed, perhaps a warm brew could be made. More often, however, the herbs were tucked beneath the covers, left to be gently warmed by body heat. You set down the bundle and glance at the small earthenware cup by the hearth. Traces of dried liquid cling to its interior, likely from earlier this winter, when someone brewed leaves in it before bed. You picture the family passing the cup round, each sipping the gentle brew as warmth spreads through their chests. Kneeling by the hearth, your fingers brush the ashes once more. Beneath, the coal glows faintly, reminding you tonight, hot water is a luxury. Yet in many homes, even a warm herbal brew carries symbolic power. The ritual of preparing herbs grants a sense of control. A small ceremony against the cold. A question drifted into your thoughts. Scholars studying herbal traditions often ponder how much of this winter plant knowledge stems from survival necessity, and how much from ancient beliefs woven into rural folklore. Evidence suggests families learned through both observation and oral tradition. Certain herbs were chosen for their proven ability to ease discomfort, while others persisted through the trust of parents and grandparents, who believed the mere presence of the herbs could safeguard peaceful sleep. You rise once more to examine the remaining items on the shelf. A small wooden pestle rests beside a bowl, its surface stained with greenish minus bloom arcs from years of crushing leaves. The pestle handle lies nestled within, its shaft smooth from countless palms rubbing against it. You imagine your parents grinding herbs during the lucid moments between sleep, listening to the rhythmic scraping sound, letting this steady noise blend with the stillness of the night. Your fingertips trace the cool, solid rim of the mortar tool that has helped countless nights pass peacefully. In this world, practical knowledge often intertwines with ancient superstition, weaving a tapestry where plants bear dual powers, physical and emotional. You glance once more at your sleeping family, the children curled tightly together, their breaths soft. You notice the faint herbal scent wafting from the bedding. Perhaps someone had rubbed crushed leaves onto the fabric at dusk, hoping this fragrance would help them weather the storm more peacefully. A mother's touch, a father's gentle admonition. Such simple gestures have woven themselves into the rhythm of enduring the cold winter. Mother's caress, father's admonition. These simple gestures had woven themselves into the rhythm of enduring the cold winter. You walk slowly towards the doorway, pausing beside the doorframe. In the dim light, you glimpsed another bundle of herbs tied above the lintel. This one carried a faintly bitter scent. Many households customarily hang specific plants upon doors and windows, believing them to dispel winter's ailments and wandering spirits. Whether these customs hold true or not, a sense of protection they bring always soothes the anxieties of long, dark nights. You draw a deep breath, letting the mingled scents fill your lungs. The sweetness of earth, the richness of resin, the faint fragrance of herbs. These scents remind you. You recall winter's true essence of survival, never solely about warmth and sustenance, but in the solace woven from humble materials gathered in milder seasons. These herbs carry memories of sunlight, warm breezes, and verdant growth. Now all buried beneath the snow, you return to the hearth, curling once more upon the hearthside. The coal glows softly, its light diffused, while the herbal scents flow through the air with a warm, enduring constancy. You imagine yourself wrapped in a blanket, letting these aromas linger in your mind, listening to the storm whispering outside the window, sinking into a second sleep. This cottage no longer resembles a fortress, but rather a sanctuary, a place to share warmth, weather the storm, where long minus harvested plants still hold enough quiet magic to guide weary bodies into rest. Closing your eyes briefly, you feel the chill still lingering at the room's edges, patient and present, yet softened by the herbs. The steady warmth of sleeping can stabilize it. Lumps of coal kept it at bay. Within this equilibrium, sleep descended silently through the deepest winter night. You placed your palm lightly upon the hearthside floor, letting the faint warmth seep into your skin. Then your thoughts drifted to another silent truth of medieval winter nights. Illness was a frequent visitor, not always severe, not always fatal, yet ever lurking in the shadows of cold rooms and the long, dark nights. You rise slowly, feeling the weight of this realization sink into the dim space around you. Your gaze sweeps over the children. One stirs slightly, a faint breath escaping beneath the bedding. That familiar sound signals child nostrils, throats parched from inhaling cold air. You imagine how easily a simple cough might spread in such a household. The air was damp, the chill ever minus present. Villagers wrapped themselves in wool, both warming and moisture minus wicking. spending hours inhaling the smoke from low minus burning hearts. Illness and dampness were woven into the rhythm of winter. You moved towards a distant corner, where small baskets held dried roots and strips of cloth. These were not luxury medicines, but humble tools for families who had to fend for themselves. You kneel to pick up a cloth strip, faintly scented with vinegar and dried fruit. People often soak cloths in herbal decoctions to lay upon fevered foreheads. You picture your mother scooping warm water from the hearth, wringing the cloth with delicate fingertips, pressing it gently against a child's skin beneath dim lamplight. You pick up a withered root, crisp and twisted like aged earth. Some roots cease sore throat or soothe stomach troubles, while others must be chewed slowly at night to quell coughs. In many regions, these remedies stem from wisdom passed down through generations, preserved by memory rather than written records. As you turn the root in your palm, the curious details of rural customs surface in some communities. Families believe placing a healing root beneath a pillow summons protective forces to watch over the sleeper's breath. Whether fully believed or not, this gesture always brings comfort when illness lingers in the house. You glance towards the bedding, imagining the root hidden beneath the fabric sedge or resting lightly against a child's shoulder. You rise once more, drawing near the hearth where coal embers glow with a weary, orange light beneath the ashes. You stir them gently, thinking of how many cold nights have depended on this fragile warmth. When someone falls ill, the hearth becomes the center of care. Warm water, soft cloths, hot stones wrapped in wool. All these stem from those few embers that burn until dawn. Without them, sickness would sap the family's strength even more deeply. You approach the cellar door, kneeling beside it. As you gently lift the pipe, a warm current rises from below. In the darkness, the livestock breathe steadily, their body heat filling the low space. When someone lies ill upstairs, their very survival becomes precious. The warm floor prevents night-time fevers from turning into deadly chills. You close the cellar door once more, feeling warmth softly settle back beneath your knees on the wooden planks. A question drifts into your mind. The proposition scholars often debate when exploring medieval medical practices how much of a household's healing wisdom stems from observation, and how much from inherited belief shaped by ancient customs. Scholars remain divided. Some maintain households relied chiefly on practical remedies honed through repeated trial, while others point to the spiritual or symbolic protective significance concealed within nightly rituals. Truth, as ever, likely lies in their fusion. You approach the pallet and kneel beside your family member. Mother sleeps lightly, her breaths often steady. Her hand still rests beside the child, ever alert to the warmth or shiver beneath the quilt. In such households, care never truly ceases. Even in slumber, parents awaken instantly to the slightest sound or movement, maintaining vigilance over the fragile forms resting beside them. A faint cough emerges from beneath the quilt. You lift your head to listen. The sound is faint yet carries a familiar edge. You picture how such a cough might intensify in an unheated room. You see your mother rising to fetch cloth or warm stones, whispering soothing words to lull the child back to sleep. On nights like this, the underlying tension weighs far heavier than the surface stillness. You rose slowly and approached the doorway. The chill seeping through the crack beneath the door felt particularly biting there, like a cold hand brushing across the floorboards. You pressed your foot against the gap, imagining someone sealing it with cloth strips or straw to keep the cold air from disturbing the sleeper in the sickbed. Such an effort seemed insignificant. Yet, in this world, small acts often carried immense weight. Your gaze drifted to the earthenware cup by the hearth. The dried minus-up residue hinted at once minus steep turb. Family members often prepared gentle medicinal broths for the sick, hoping the warmth might ease chest constriction or alleviate wheezing. You imagined sipping such a drink in the quiet hours between first and second sleep, holding the earthenware cup close to your face, letting the steam caress your cheeks. You returned to sit cross-legged by the hearth, coal blocks flickering faintly beside you. The room sinks into the latter half of the night. Outside, the storm fades to a distant sigh. Creatures stir quietly beneath. The air indoors carries the scent of herbs, the fragrance of wool, and the faint bitterness of cooling embers. Closing your eyes for a moment, imagining what it means to be ill in this world. No nearby physician, no warm bath, no constant heat source, only the simple care of family, sharing the warmth of a blanket. Slow healing guided by roots, herbs, and patience. A sense of humility washes over you. Healing guided by roots, herbs, and patience. A sense of humility washes over you like a tide. You open your eyes once more. The child's breathing is steady. The mother remains in her protective stance. A fragile tranquility lingers within the room. Illness may invade the space, but so does care. So does tenderness. So does the silent resolve that steadfastly endures each night. As you listen to the steady rhythm of breath and the faint murmur of the retreating storm, you realize that winter's illness shapes not only the body, but also forged communal rituals of sleep and the tender ways families learn to watch over each other in the coldest, quietest hours of the night. You let the stillness of the room envelop you once more, your gaze shifting towards the door. The storm had eased. Yet another thought emerged, quietly shaped by countless footsteps traversing the frozen fields long after sunset. In the medieval world, not all could sleep warmly indoors through the night. Many journeyed, many wandered, many found themselves far from home, with only darkness, cold winds, and hope for companionship. You rise slowly, imagining the feeling of facing winter roads when the world falls silent. You approach the door, your palm flat against the wooden panel. It is icy yet strangely inviting, as if bearing the memory of hands that once knocked seeking shelter. Winter travel was always arduous. Roads were muddy, icy, or buried beneath unpredictable drifts of snow. Yet people still moved between villages for trade, for work, religious duty, or simply the necessity of survival. In many places, even when the cold bites most fiercely, travel remains a daily necessity. You push the door open just enough for a glimpse. Thick snow covers the ground, untrodden. The night sky glows faintly with the reflected whiteness, yet the chill beyond the threshold is sharper, almost metallic in its edge. You inhale, letting the cold sting your throat. You picture yourself wrapped in a thin cloak, wearing flimsy boots, carrying a small bundle as you traverse this landscape. The crisp crackle of each step crushing the snow will echo through the desolate world. You envision the traveler trudging along the path, breath condensing into pale mist on the air, shoulders shivering with cold, fingers clutching the pack straps. They may have set out before dawn or after dusk, hoping to reach the next village before the chill deepened. Some carry small pouches of herbs or dried fruit to chew against the cold. Others rely on layers of coarse cloth wrapped in wool to withstand the biting night wind. You stand outside for a moment, letting the chill climb your skin. A breeze stirs the snow piled at your boots, swirling it into fine patterns. You imagine some traveling alone in this ghostly, shadowy light, each gust of cold wind gnawing at their cheeks. With every mile traveled, their feet grow numb, their thoughts wavering between alertness and exhaustion. At this moment, shelter means everything. You turn towards the cottage, imagining its warmth becoming a beacon for the wanderer. Yet not every traveler is fortunate enough to find an open door. Many must seek shelter where they stand. You see solitary figures trudging through deep snow, searching for any windbreak barns, sheds, rock ledges resembling shallow caves, even haystacks offering crude refuge if one burrows deep enough. A hazy memory of rural custom surfaces farmhands of old would often spend winters huddled inside empty grain sacks, curled up as if within makeshift cocoons. Clumsy, perhaps, yet surprisingly effective at trapping warmth. You picture someone curled within the sack, their breath condensing into mist upon the coarse fabric, trying to ignore the stinging pain of frozen ozone stiff joints. You step back into the cottage and close the door softly. The faint warmth feels like a gentle embrace beyond the bitter cold. You approach the cellar door and listen to the animals, breathing below. Their breath remains steady. You imagine weary travelers seeking shelter in the barn instead, sleeping alongside livestock. It was not uncommon. The body heat radiating from horses, cattle, and sheep was enough to see a wanderer through the cold night. The rich scent of hay mingled with warmth, perhaps soothing aching limbs. You curl once more at the edge of the straw bedding, imagining yourself wrapped in a frozen cloak, lying in the barn, listening to the animals turn and breathe. The barn floor was hard, rough, and often damp, yet compared to freezing in the wilderness, such rudimentary shelter seemed miraculously precious. You pictured someone nestling close to cattle as they slept, grateful for the warmth of animal heat piercing the winter air. A question surfaces in your mind, one frequently debated by scholars studying the lives of laborers, merchants, and vagabonds. How many times did travelers endure long nights without proper shelter? Some accounts describe people sleeping beneath hedgerow, in hollow trees, or undercuts. Others mention roadside chapels or abandoned cottages offering brief refuge. The evidence varies greatly, suggesting travelers always adapted their survival methods to the terrain. You rise and walk towards the guest bed, where the spare blanket lies slightly askew, as if awaiting a weary body to smooth it over the straw. You trace the fabric, imagining the relief of sinking into warmth after a long, frozen trek. Travelers' gratitude must have been overwhelming at that moment's safety. Warmth, the whisper of sleepiness, the scent of woolen herbs, all becoming a sanctuary from the empty road left behind. You picture the traveler tossing and turning for a while, listening to the steady breathing of an unfamiliar family. Perhaps they murmured a quiet thank you, or whispered a prayer of gratitude, or perhaps sheer exhaustion plunged them straight into sleep, their bodies finally surrendering to the cold. You kneel to touch the floorboards, now warmer than before, molded by the rising heat beneath. You picture the traveler discovering this warmth, realizing the livestock beneath the cottage had warmed the space, and feeling gratitude, not only for the family, but for those creatures who unwittingly shared their warmth with a stranger. You rise again, gazing at the door. A wooden door stands solid and secure, a barrier against the chill. You picture countless hands throughout history knocking upon such a door, seeking shelter after long, lonely journeys. Some were granted entry, some found refuge only in the barn, and others found no shelter at all. Winter travel is a test, and few pass unscathed. Closing your eyes for a moment, you imagine sinking into a second sleep after such a journey, the warmth of the bedding, the softness of straw beneath your back, the scent of herbs, the steady breathing of humans and animals mingling together. All these scents blend into a long-minus forgotten sense of security, a tranquility that has stretched across hours, even days. You draw in deeply, letting this imagined warmth seep into your very bones. Within this small cabin, the night remains cold and vast, yet even the traveler finds a place to rest, weary bones laid to rest, hurried breaths gradually steadying, the sharpness of darkness softening. You stand still by the door, letting the weary traveler's form fade, instead gazing upon another kind of hibernate, or either farmer or wanderer, but one immersed in the night's deeper silence and scantier warmth. You move slowly through the hall, imagining stone walls replacing mud minus thatch, echoing chambers supplanting low ceilings. This is a life tempered by prayer, discipline, and cold, chill seeping into the soul, not merely the marrow. Now you step into a fantastical cell. Close your eyes for a moment. Sketch its form: a narrow stone chamber, with but a sliver of a window, a wooden stool, a thin straw mat, a woolen blanket neatly folded at the foot of the bed, a small table bearing the faint glow of a dying candle. No fire, no hearth, a stillness so profound Even breathing feels like noise. Opening your eyes, you draw a deep breath. The surrounding thatched cottage fades. Imagine stone walls rising from your thoughts. You move towards the room's depth, your fingertips lightly touching the wooden wall, instantly envisioning it transform into a cold stone face. A chill instantly seeps into your skin. Monastic cells require no heating. Warmth is deemed a worldly comfort, feared to distract the soul from devotion. Many religious orders believe enduring cold tempers discipline, sharpens prayer, and reminds the body of its place beneath the heavens. You observe a monk seated cross-legged upon a straw mat, wrapped in a woolen robe, hands tucked into its long sleeves for warmth. The fabric, coarse and heavy from years of use, carries the scent of aged wool, mingling with faint incense and the chill that permeates every inch of the space. As he murmurs prayers in preparation for sleep, his breath in the dim light forms wisps of white mist. As you tread softly, a memory drifts into your mind in certain monasteries. Sleep is laid directly upon hard wooden planks rather than soft mattresses, believing bodily discomfort would preserve the soul's humility. Other monastic communities permitted straw mats, but nothing softer was ever permitted. Blankets were scarce, often shared or rotated among the monks. You picture someone pulling a thin quilt over themselves, that sharp intake of breath when the fabric fails to ward off the biting chill. You pace towards an imagined window, mimicking the touch of cold stone frames. Morning light seeps into the cell as faintly as into this small room, yet the chill there is heavier, thicker, seeping into the joints like a silent burden. You picture being roused before dawn by the clear toll of bells, their sound piercing the silent cloisters. Even on the coldest morning, the monks rose for prayer, washed their faces with icy water, and stepped into the flickering candlelight of the long corridors. A question lingered in your mind and in your heart, one often pondered by scholars studying monastic rules and diaries. Did the monks truly embrace this cold, or were they merely compelled to endure it by the constraints of their vows? Some texts portray the cold as a trial of devotion, while others reveal moments of private struggle, where monks admitted their dread of winter nights. The evidence is mixed, suggesting a coexistence of faith and discomfort, both admirable and profoundly human. You kneel by the hearth in your cell, yet the fire in your thoughts has already died, and the flagstones beneath your feet grow steadily colder. You picture the monk's nightly ritual brief prayers, hushed pleas for strength, slowly lowering himself onto the mat. Knowing warmth would never fully arrive, you imagine curling sideways, knees pressed to your chest, pulling the blanket tighter, hoping your breath might warm the tiny pockets of air around your face. Then you hear the silence, true silence, so oppressive it presses against your eardrums until you hear your own heartbeat faintly echoing within your skull. In the monastery, silence is not merely a night-time state, but a rule, a path of discipline, awaits meditation. All night long, no whisper, no rustle of children, no stir of animals, only the occasional groan of ancient beams or distant footsteps deep within the cloister would break this stillness. You pause before the dark door of the cell. Warm breath from livestock below filled the space above, yet such comfort was absent in the monastery cell. No rumbling of cattle in slumber, no soft snorting of goats. Only stone, with stubborn devotion, held the chill fast. You imagined how different the night would be without the warmth of other bodies, human or beast. Sleep grows thin and light, drifting in fleeting fragments rather than deep, lingering repose. You turn to gaze upon the bedding within the cottage, its warmth beckoning like a gentle flame. Kneeling by the bed, you picture the contrast, the monk sleeping alone, wrapped in solitude as tight as coarse linen. Even in the communal dormitory, the silence between bed stretches vast and boundless. You see the rows of straw mattresses beneath the stone vault, each person lying curled within their own pocket of cold air. The stillness so profound, it could almost be mistaken for still water. As your hand reaches for the bedding, fragments of monastic life surface, In certain cloisters, monks would share warmth only on the coldest nights, illicitly pressing their strong mattresses together. Correspondence from certain monasteries describes these nights with tender honesty whispers exchanged in darkness, the endurance of shared prayer, the rare solace of another's body pressed close. Uncommon, yet real. You rise slowly, retreating to the hut center. Here the air feels warm, almost generous compared to the icy cell you'd imagined. A quiet gratitude wells within you. Even this humble cell, with its draughts and faint embers, feels a luxury compared to those stone chambers forsaken for spiritual clarity. You close your eyes, picturing yourself curled upon a cold stone slab, a thin blanket trapped around you, your breath condensing into mist above your face as you await sleep's slow descent. Perhaps your stomach gurgles softly, perhaps your fingertips ache faintly, yet your mind remains focused on prayer, on discipline, on the rhythm of the cloister. You picture yourself sinking into fragile slumber, waking before dawn to greet another day of devotion and chill. You open your eyes once more. The cottage greets you with the crisp crackle of embers, deeper warmth, and the gentle breathing of family. The contrast between these two worlds deepens your understanding within this small room. Sleep shapes survival. Within the monastery, sleep tempers vocation. As you stand still, feeling the cottage's warmth envelop you once more, you grasp a simple yet profound truth. Whatever walls one inhabits, rest can always be found, through winter's chill, through devotion, through intimacy, through endurance. Each world possesses its own distinctive warmth, its own manner of welcoming sleep. Standing in the soft darkness of the cottage, your thoughts drift once more from the cold stone cell of the monastery to a wholly different vision of winter nights. It is a life surrounded by more blankets, more fabrics, more spaciances, a world of higher ceilings, thicker walls, and slightly more abundant meals. Yet even there, the chill finds its way in. You move slowly across the room, imagining the manor hall as its doors open, the flickering light of tallow candles, tapestry-lined corridors stretching out, beds of a width beyond the common folk's wildest dreams. You are entering an aristocratic winter bedchamber. Take a deep breath and envision a spacious ember-framed room, suffused with the faint scent of beeswax and dried lavender. Heavy drapes hang from narrow windows, their layered folds designed to trap warmth. Carpets cover most of the stone floor, muffling footsteps and blocking the most biting cold. Against the far wall, a 4- booster bed is piled high with furs, woolen blankets, and embroidered quilts. At first glance, it appears extravagant, bordering on opulence when compared to the straw mattresses found in this cottage. Yet when you draw in your breath slowly, you recall that even grand estates cannot withstand the harshest cold, especially when biting winds pierce the cracks in ancient stone walls. You picture yourself approaching that ornate vesta, hearing the soft touch of your boot soles against the thick woven carpet. Pulling back the bed curtains, your hand glides over fur, soft worn, carrying the scent of the animal, fox, sheep, or perhaps rarer pelts. Nobility had access to materials commoners could never hope to attain: imported furs, dyed fabrics, blankets embroidered with intricate patterns. Yet, even so, the chill would seep through the cracks of winter nights. You picture the noble sleeper, curled beneath layers upon layers of bedding, their breath faintly visible in the cold air. A detail from the household record surfaces: many noble residences placed braziers beneath the bedding before sleep, carefully carrying glowing embers from the hearth. Servants would slide the brazier along the bedding, warming the space to just the right temperature. Yet even so, the warmth dissipated swiftly, swallowed whole by the room's vastness. You imagine the servant parting silently, having warmed the bedding before withdrawing, leaving the noble master curled within the fleeting warmth. You see yourself lying amidst the luxury, yet still shivering slightly as the chill seeps into every corner. Nobles may build thick walls and stoke the fires, but winter shows no reverence for wealth, nor fear for status. Grand halls remained rotty. Cold corridors and soaring ceilings disperse warmth too swiftly. You watch candlelight flicker in the chill air, flames bending in the silence to remind you, even amidst splendor, comfort may slip away unnoticed. You tread softly, pondering another hallmark of aristocratic nights, servants often resting nearby, whether in adjoining chambers or upon makeshift pallets at the foot of their masters' beds. They tend the fires, adjust the covers, and attend to midnight needs. Their presence means the noble sleeper seldom rests subtly alone. You observe servants wrapped in simple woolen blankets, slumbering lightly upon cushions, ever ready to rise at the faintest murmur. A thought flashes through your mind. This is precisely the question scholars often ponder when comparing domestic life across social strata. Did the nobility truly sleep more comfortably than commoners? Or did the vast halls make it harder to retain warmth? Some argue that the sheer scale of noble residences makes them difficult to heat effectively, leaving them more vulnerable to the chill. Others contend that the sumptuous bedding on layers of clothing do indeed make a significant difference. Both perspectives hold merit, yet the contrast between luxury and discomfort remains starkly evident. You pause at an imagined window, heavy drapes blocking the chill, yet almost able to sense the icy presence beyond fabric. Running your fingers along the curtain's edge, you picture frost patterns crystal lacing upon the glass. In certain estates, servants would stuff wool or straw into window crevices to block the seeping chill. This labor was perpetual. Winter effortlessly defeated tapestries, carpets, and heavy draperies, just as it pierced the walls of cottages with equal ease. You step back, picturing the stillness within the noble chamber. No storm lashing thin walls, no sounds of livestock below, only the occasional crackle of the blazing fire within the stone hearth, piercing the profound silence. You listen intently to the wood's crackling, such extravagant burning, a sight the peasantry could only dream of. Noble estates could procure cartloads of timber, yet even this fierce blaze struggled to sustain warmth in the vast hall. You gaze once more at the imagined vista, picturing the sleeper adjusting layer upon layer of clothing, pulling the fur trim tightly up to their chin. Nobles often sleep in long linen robes or soft woolen nightwear, their refinement far surpassing the coarse homespun garments villagers wear day and night. You imagine the feel of silk against skin, warm at first, turning cool as the night deepens. As you pace, a folk tale surfaces. Certain households would place polished stones beneath the pillows of noble children, believing their smooth surfaces absorbed excess cold, shielding the young from winter's grip. Whether born of superstition or practical observation, this belief lingers in fragments of family lore. You imagine lifting that stone, now cold and heavy, kneeling at the imaginary edge of the manor's hearth, feeling the lingering warmth in your mind's eye. The flames here must burn more fiercely and confidently than in the farmhouse, yet far surpass it. Yet those hearths, more ornamental than practical, often allowed heat to escape upwards in great quantities. You imagine the noble sleeper needing layers of clothing rather than the firelight alone for warmth, realizing that all the splendor in the world cannot fully tame the long winter nights. You rise once more, allowing the scene to fade as the surrounding thatched cottages, enveloped in warm shadows, reclaim your vision. This contrast deepens your realization. Wealth shapes the material conditions of sleep, the size of the bed, the number of blankets, the service of attendants. Yet cold reigns supreme over all. It levels the differences in comfort far more swiftly than most imagine. You draw in a slow breath, your soles touching the rough texture of the thatched floor. You picture noble sleepers wrapped in furs, turning within heavy quilts and spacious, draughty bedrooms. You picture the breath condensing in mist upon the pillows, just as it does here and now. Different worlds, different substances, yet equally oppressed by winter's grip. Standing within the hut's hazy warmth, a clear and quiet realization dawns. Winter humbles all peasant, monk, traveler, or noble. Though comfort varies, the chill reaches every bed. You stand still for a moment, letting the imagined warmth of noble furs dissolve into the real, simple coziness of the surrounding cottages. Then another presence drifts into your thoughts, heavier than the cold wind, heavier even than the long winter nights themselves. Hunger. Not the gentle, familiar hunger of winter's slow approach, but a deeper, heavier hunger when crops fail, livestock dwindle, and heavy snow falls early, thick and unforgiving. You turn to gaze upon your family sleeping upon their straw mattresses. Their breaths are soft, steady, and peaceful, yet you know full well that in winters past, such peaceful slumber was never so light. You approach the wooden chest by the wall, slowly lifting the lid, imagining the emptiness in your family's stomachs when the chest was nearly bare. In years of poor harvest, that emptiness became a constant presence in the house. When the crops failed, the entire village was shrouded in the same silent dread. You peer inside. A few shriveled beans, a handful of barley. These humble provisions suddenly feel like treasures. You gently close the lid, listening to its heavy thud, feeling the weight of food depleted before spring's arrival. You move towards the hearth, crouching once more beside the coal. The faint glow offered little warmth. In famine winters, households extinguished their fires early to conserve fuel, choosing darkness over hunger. You brush the ashes, watching the fine cold dust dance in the dim light. Imagine someone curled up in this deep winter for months, stomachs cramping, wondering if tomorrow's coal will boil into the most meagre of meals. A thread of ancient village wisdom flits through your mind when famine strikes. People often hang an extra wooden spoon on the wall, left to gather dust, praying for better days to come soon. That idle spoon symbolized the meal they hoped to serve when fortune turned. Now you glance at the wall, half-minus expecting to find such a spoon hanging there. Perhaps this household, too, had stashed one away for hard times. You move back towards the bedding. The children sleep warm tonight, though in winter's desperate chill. Every family swathes their young in heavy quilts, laced so tightly they scarcely move, hoping the tender bodies might trap the heat needed to survive. To ward off hunger's encroachment, parents routinely give their own share to the children, going days themselves with scarcely a bite. You sat upon the edge of the straw mat, imagining yourself curled up there, the rumble of your empty stomach gradually merging with the creaking of the eave. A silent question arose in your mind, one frequently explored by scholars studying times of scarcity. How did famine alter night minus time existence? Some suggest families retired early, seeking sleep to escape hunger's torment. Others contend that hunger made sleep harder, thoughts circling in anxiety. The truth likely depended on each household's circumstances. You gaze once more at the coal lumps, imagining this room filled not with warmth, but with the faint moans of suffering. You rise and approach the door, your fingertips brushing the cold wood. A vision of deep winter flashes through your mind. Villagers opening their doors not to welcome strangers, but to barter the last scraps of grain, haggling over meagre rations. You picture snow piled high against the threshold, blocking the way, trapping families who could no longer seek aid from neighboring farms. You turn towards the corner beside the storage chest. In certain regions, families would place small bowls of water here during famine winters, observing the thickness of the ice that formed overnight. The thicker the layer, the deeper the dread. If the cold spell lingered too long, stored grain would rot, water sources freeze, and livestock gradually weaken. You kneel, touching the cold floor with your fingertips, imagining the chill permeating the entire dwelling. The livestock in the cellar stirred faintly, their feeble warmth transmitted through the wooden floorboards. Yet your thoughts drifted to darker visions. In the harshest winters, people were often forced to choose feed the animals or fill their own bellies. You try to grasp the weight of this choice, the cow representing milk, future cows, and ploughing strength, the goat providing milk and warmth. Losing either meant shattering hopes for spring's revival. Slowly rising, You move back towards the house's center. A vision surfaces. Family huddled in a circle during famine. Bodies pressed closer than ever before, not merely for warmth, but seeking solace. Hunger warped the mind. Wandering dreams vivid and grotesque. People oft undreamt of plentiful, warm bread, of fruits gleaming in sunlight. Many tales describe famine dreams as painfully vivid. Sometimes, upon waking to reality, the dreamer would weep. You kneel, palms lightly touching the bedding. Imagine these covers draped over emaciated limbs, ribs protruding beneath shirts worn night after night. In those hard times, garments grew loose within weeks. Belts that once fit snugly had to be tightened daily. You trace your fingertips along the quilt's edge, picturing hands, weakened by hunger and resolve, fumbling to untie knots. A memory of rural custom surfaces in certain villages. During famine winters, people would place hardened crusts of bread by the window as symbolic offering, praying for blessing or fortune. The crust would often crack within hours, yet this act allowed anxious households to cling to hope. Now you turn to the window, picturing that silhouette, a symbolic offering, praying for protection or a change in fortune. The crust would often freeze within hours, yet this act gave anxious, burdened families a sliver of hope to hold on to. Now you turn to the window, imagining the silhouette of that crust of bread resting on the sill. You return to the hearth and sit. The faint crackling of coal reminds you that life persists, however feeble. Families in famine winters cling to that single lump of coal as they cling to one another. Closing your eyes for a moment, you imagine yourself in such a season. Perhaps it is not the cold that often wakes you, but the persistent take of an empty stomach. Perhaps you curl up sideways, close to a loved one. Seeking solace in silent dread, you slowly open your eyes. Slowly, slowly. Tonight the cottage is quiet. The family sleeps soundly. Snow lies still outside the window, but the memory of that famine winter lingers like a faint shadow across the room, reminding you that survival is not just about warmth, but about enduring hunger with courage, sharing the meagre provisions that remain, clutching hope when there is almost nothing left. You draw in a quiet breath, letting the scene settle around you, the faint glow of coal, the undulating quilts, the house guarding its fragile warmth. At last you understand, even in the harshest winter, people find ways to sleep, to dream, to greet the new day not through abundance, but through perseverance, rooted in the power of love and sharing. You linger long by the hearth, letting the quiet hum soften your thoughts. Your family sleeps. The coal's faint glow fades. The storm outside gradually subsides. Now the air shifts silently, not warmth, not yet warmth, but a gentle touch, like the whisper of change. You move slowly towards the shuttered window, sensing the night stillness tilting ever so slightly towards promise. In winter's harshest hour, even the faintest hint of seasonal transition carries a weight bordering on the sacred. Your fingertips lightly touched the window frame. The wood was cool, yet no longer as bitterly cold as before. A faint tone within the wind's murmur drew you to pause, less sharp, less harsh. You leaned in to listen, and already the air carried a different texture, a gentler rhythm. The villagers always sense these shifts before spring arrives. Their lives have long resonated with nature's subtlest signals, a breeze softening slightly, an unfamiliar sound slipping into the night stillness, snowdrift settling with a whisper rather than a crack. These signs carry hope. You step back, breathing slowly. The air within the house shifts quietly too, so it no longer swirls heavily within the room. The chill, though not yet gone, has lost its edge. You imagine such nights, family members exchanging silent glances, murmuring that the hardest times are nearly past. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. A thread of memory surfaces in country custom. In certain regions, people believe that in the last weeks of winter, the earth sighs, releasing a gentle breath that heralds spring's distant footsteps. It is said that when this sigh descends, the frost spirits begin to lose their power, True or not, you can feel such faith sprouting from this moment, when the air shifts silently, as if the world were shifting in its sleep. You approach the bed, kneel beside the child. Their breath remains steady and warm, their body curled beneath the covers, serene as a cuckoo. You imagine your mother sensing the air's change at dawn, lifting her head slightly to find her breath no longer thick with mist. For families enduring winter day by day, these subtle signs are all the hope they have. A gentle breeze could spark conversation about preparing tools for early spring plowing or checking stored seed. Hope needs no vast expanse to sprout. You rise again, moving towards the corner where bundles of dried herbs hang from the rafters. You touch one gently. Crisp leaves crackle beneath your fingertips. In some regions, families burn small bundles of leftover herbs on nights when the air shifts, believing the smoke pays homage to winter's rain. The scent rising from the smouldering bundles fills the house with memories of warmer seasons. If only for a moment, you approach the doorway, crouching to feel the draft through the crack. The chill remains, yet it has lost its sharp edge, its flow now gentler. You imagine your father waking in the morning, placing his hand upon the same spot, murmuring some quiet hope. After months of battling the cold, even the slightest tenderness feels like a gift. A thought occurs to you scholars discussing medieval seasonal rituals often ponder. Did people deliberately track these subtle shifts? Or did intuition guide them more precisely than deliberate observation? Some texts record meticulous monitoring of frost, wind, and sky, while others suggest households relied on experienced miners' own instinct. The truth likely lay somewhere in between, in a world without calendars or weather forecasts. Nature itself became the clock. You return to the window, gently unlatching it to peer outside. The sky glows faintly, a hint of dawn breaking, a soft halo spreading behind distant clouds. You exhale slowly. The snow surface appears smoother, glistening rather than frozen solid. Even the wind seems calmer, brushing softly over the drifts rather than cleaving through them. You step outside for a moment, letting the chill envelop you. Yet this cold feels different, biting yet soft, as if winter's edge has softened somewhat. You catch sight of a minute outline at the edge of the eaves rafters, a droplet of water trembling suspended among the thatch, as if wrestling with whether to fall. In the dead of winter, when all is frozen, a single droplet heralds change. You lift a finger to touch it. The droplet spreads across your fingertip, cold, yet undeniably liquid. You slip back indoors, closing the door softly. That tiny droplet echoes in your minder's side, a whisper, a hint of thaw beneath the ice. You return to the hearth, settling slowly, letting your body sink into the strong ice-covered floor. The cold glows faintly, yet seems brighter than before. Perhaps an illusion, perhaps not. The cottage breathes around you, air stirring gently. You sense the season's invisible gears turning, propelling, finally moving forward. You gaze upon your sleeping family, imagining what this shift might mean for them. The coldest night slowly fades, promising longer days, the chance for warm winds to awaken, the faint stirring of soil beneath the snow. Tonight, their dreams may unknowingly mirror this shift, filled with rushing streams, sprouting fields, or the sun's image upon bare earth. You close your eyes, letting this moment settle within. Hope sprouts quietly in winter, often overlooked, often hidden, but when its surface severs softly, it is already deeply rooted. The night lingers, chill still clinging to the rims, yet the air carries a new quality, felt so distinctly it resembles warmth, touched by fingertips. The whisper of spring has begun to drift through the frozen world. You remain seated by the hearth, holding that small promise of change within your thoughts. Then lift your gaze to the dimmed ceiling. This is winter's final stage, a last long night before the world slowly returns to warmth. It arrives without drama, unannounced by birdsong or sunlight, but like a deep sigh exhaled from the season's depths, quietly enveloping the cottage. You rise slowly, feeling the floors chill beneath you. though the air around you grows increasingly mild. You approach the shuttered window once more. The wood your fingertips touch remains cold, yet you detect a faint looseness in the night's grip. The draft slips into the room as usual, yet its edge has softened, as if winter itself has begun to tire. You press your forehead lightly against the window panel, allowing your warmth to soften a small patch of wood. The sounds outside have changed too. The wind no longer carries that taut, crystalline tone, but now flows lazily, like an exhausted creature. You step back and turn to look at your sleeping family. Their breaths remain steady, warm and rhythmic, filling the cottage with a gentle melody. Kneeling by the bedside, you watch the rhythmic rise and fall of the bedding, limbs curled into a comfort only possible when utterly trusting the night. Perhaps they to sense the changing seasons, unconsciously sometimes the body knows before the mind, as you sit in stillness. A thread of thought quietly takes root. In late winter, people often describe the peculiar stillness that envelops villages at night, not a silence born of fear, but one of patience settling, a pause before the world expands once more. Imagine stepping outside at dawn, hearing sounds unheard for months, the rustle of dripping water, melting snow, ice releasing its grip on branches, the faint crackling of thawing earth. These sounds will signal to the villagers that long endurance will finally bear fruit. You move towards the hearth, crouching beside the embers. The faint glow flickers quietly beneath the ashes, like a sleeping heartbeat. You stir gently. Sparks flare then fade. That lump of coal seems possessed of a stubborn will, reluctant to die. In many winter homes, the final nights of the harsh season carry a peculiar weight and hope. People guard their last fuel with care, knowing the warm sun will return, and then all will be less difficult. A thread of country custom slips into mind. It is said that on the night the long night ends, the soul of winter visits each house to count the living. If it finds a warm bed, embers, or the quiet breath of a sleeping child, it departs content. Such tales lend tenderness to the harsh winter, making its departure seem gentle. You imagine the god of winter pausing before this door, seeing the family safe and sound, then drifting away without malice. You rise and approach the door. The draft beneath the doorframe already feels different, less like a hungry, biting cold. You press your palm lightly against the doorframe, imagining the days to come when this door opens again. It will greet the scent of damp earth rather than frozen soil. When families step outside, no longer will they be hunched figures huddling against the cold, but bright eyes awakening as the world thaws. A question floats in your mind. One roosters often ponder when studying seasonal customs: do villagers truly realize the end of the long night, or do they merely sense it in their bones? Records suggest both. Some families mark the hour with silent rites of thanksgiving. Others drift with the seasons, never consciously tracking it, yet still feeling nature's hopeful shift. You return to the house's center, letting your eyes adjust to the dimness. Every corner feels so familiar now: the rough walls, the hanging herbs, the straw-ine stuffed crevices, the outline of a child wrapped in a blanket, the faint glow of earthenware pots, the trembling window latch. You feel connected to everything, as if moving through memory rather than dwelling. You kneel once more beside the bedding, your palms lightly touching the blanket. The warmth beneath your hands feels deeper now, as if the shared body heat of your family reflects not only survival, but also hope. You imagine your mother about to awaken, sensing the shift in the air, murmuring that winter is loosening its grip, that today's sun will linger longer in the sky. Below, a muffled sound from the livestock, followed by the soft rustle of hay being shifted. Even they seem to sense the change, their movements less dense, their breathing lighter. You imagine your father descending the stairs later, discovering the animals no longer restless, stamping their hooves with renewed vigor, eagerly anticipating the coming thaw. Use it quietly, letting these impressions settle within your heart. The room, the people, the night, the season all converge in gentle harmony. This final, Long night is not a triumphant moment, but an instant of release, a slow, humble realization that the cold will pass. You draw one last deep breath. The air your tongue touches is already different, crisper, softer, carrying a faint promise. You understand that though this night is still, it is the final chapter, not sharp, not sudden, but as gentle as snow melting in the morning light. The world will see light again. The fields will awaken. This family will sleep with less fear. Now they pass through the final long night in peace. Stillness and softness cover them. You curl up by the hearth once more, letting your body sink into the cottage's gentle shadows. Coals murmur beneath the embers. A final reminder, even in the quietest moments. Warmth remains. The air has softened. The storm recedes, and the world stands still, allowing thoughts to drift like snowflakes upon a drawing round. You breathe deeply, the scent of aged wool, dried earth, and cooling straw weaving a cocoon around you. Every sound now softens. A faint creak of wooden beams recedes. The slow breaths of sleeping children become a lullaby. Even the faint rustling of animals below dissolves into soothing stillness. All slows down. All grows gentle. From above, you survey the cottage nestled within the vast, silent landscape, a warm circle of thin walls, a haze of light, a family gathered in slumber, and you lie still beside it, feeling the last glow of winter. Let your shoulders relax. Let your breath slow. Let your thoughts drift freely. The cold outside can wait. The world will thaw eventually. Tonight requires no distraction. Not the wind, not the darkness, not the long years past. Only stillness remains, and warmth, and the gentle realization, however deep the winter night may be, however profound its stillness, it will inevitably give way to dawn. Let this thought settle gently within your heart, like an unquenchable ember slowly radiating its comforting glow. Let your eyelids grow heavy. Let your thoughts drift. Here you are, safe and sound, cradled by the approaching world's awakening, enveloped in tranquil dreams.